I actually had an idea too late of a really good name for this podcast before we called it the Think Tankers, and it would have been a shit podcast for wankers.
Yeah, but I do think that might be taken
Is it?
by David
Well, it's
Walliams.
Freddie Quinn's golf podcast, isn't it?
Is it? Shit podcast for wankers.
No.
And also, the word gullible isn't in the dictionary.
I'm just going to check to see if it's taken. It is not taken.
Yeah, it'd also
No.
be impossible to kind of mark it on any platform. It wouldn't work.
Yeah. You
It's
can use
hard enough.
emojis.
We've been stuck on the same amount of followers for about 3 weeks now, so part of me is just like, have we now reached our admittedly quite small audience and we're just locked
This
in
is
for
our
life
peak.
now? With
This is our
small
peak.
group of... Yeah, I was like, we've just got a small group of autists who love us, and that's it. We're theirs now.
That's fine. I'm okay with that. For now.
What I do like is, I don't know whether I just have that kind of cult leader type vibe, is that I don't tend to have like a load of people, but the people I am involved with, I'm like quite tight with. So I think that's kind of like, I just need to figure out how to leverage that to get them to leave their families and come and live in the woods with me.
Yeah.
But we'll get there.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
We will get there, yeah.
Give it another
You need to
couple
live
of
in the
weeks.
woods first.
I'll back onto the woods,
He
so I'm
lives in the
almost there.
sticks, doesn't he?
I am out in the countryside, so yeah, I am out in the countryside. How's everyone's week been? How are we doing?
Yeah, it's been good. We've had the 1 year celebrations of the Kenny Funts stretched over a whole weekend, of which Nathan was partially there for.
Mhm.
I mean, he was physically there at both, but emotionally not quite.
Some of us celebrated too much on the Friday and
Yes.
died. I left this plane and went elsewhere. And then by the time Sunday came along, I was just a shell of my former self. I didn't actually want to talk to anyone. I had zero social battery left. Like none at all. I just kind of turned up, did a very half-assed part of my set, and then sat down.
It's like, it is Schadenfreude, but it's also kind of like the opposite of living vicariously through. What's the opposite of vicarious? Because I was living in shame through you. I was reveling.
Like,
Having been in that
second-hand
position
embarrassment.
myself. Yeah, well, kind of, but like, in a way that, like, you know how when you were a teenager and you kind of get butterflies when you saw someone you fancied? I kind of got shame butterflies that made me really happy thinking about what you'd been doing.
Right.
Yeah.
I just don't, and this is how good of a weekend Nathan had. As a fan of etymology and language and words, I don't have the lexicon to describe how I feel about hearing Nathan's antics over the weekend. It just made me kick my legs up like a little girl. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
But it's
Luckily,
only
I
because
wasn't-
I've been in that position so many times that I was like, it's not me.
It happens. We went through it when we were talking about, I think it was when we were talking about like the Geordie dialect, and we were talking about the word whitey.
Yes.
Yeah, it just happens sometimes, and I just died. My whole body would not move. My consciousness was outside of it, and I just wanted to be left alone. And that's it. I survived.
Which was a
I
shame because he was
survived.
emceeing.
That is the worst part of it. Yes, forget to mention that it was the third third of the show, and I said to Ian, "I'm dying," and then Ian had to leave, and
Yeah, I
then
said,
someone else came
"Ta-ra."
over. Yeah, and then someone else came over. I said, "You will have to fill in. I can't move," and then that was that.
Yeah, to this day, I don't know who actually finished off the hosting duties.
Wasn't it the new guy,
Oscar Alex.
Oscar?
Damn,
Alex,
I've
yeah.
named him. Well,
No,
he was originally filling in for Nat Young, who pulled out due to exhaustion, because she was at the gig that Martin and I had done the previous night.
Mhm.
She exerted herself terribly in that gig, but she Yeah, so ultimately she didn't attend, and it's just like, hey, young Alex, you've been pestering us for a slot. So seemingly by the end of it, not only did he get the slot, he seemingly hosted and then joined our group.
I
So
don't think he did host. I don't think he did anything to do with that. I think
okay,
David took over once,
okay,
and then Scott took over to introduce David.
right.
And yeah, yeah, they were just
Well,
taking it in turns. They were just having a good time.
Dara O'Brien used to introduce himself for his comedy shows, so David could
Yeah,
have done that, which
Okay.
he could
would have
have
been
done.
interesting.
Yeah, he's just
So for those of us who are just joining us, it was well. First of all, welcome back to Think Tankids. This is a podcast where two stand-up comedians, myself, teach each other new topics, and today we're going to talk about renowned wrestler and interesting fella Hulk Hogan. But before we get there was a couple of comedy shows over the weekend that Nathan and Ian were at. You heard that Nathan had a. If you've ever seen The In-Betweeners, where Will takes drugs for the first time and goes up on
yeah.
stage and he's like, I don't want to alarm anyone, but I think I might be dead.
That's what it was
So
like.
Nathan was the host for this show and got a little bit too. He had a bit too much silly goose juice, as well as some other things, and failed the third part of the night. But then the fun never stops because he was back on stage. This was happened on the Friday. He was back on stage on the Sunday with a lot of
Mhm.
the same people he then had to face from the Friday. And
Yeah.
because I don't do stand-up comedy anymore, I like research and writing and all that good shit. So I'm loving this. I'm loving. Although I will take a quick detour to say in a group full of comedians, my comments about my gig to 11 to 16-year-olds seemed to be taken awfully seriously, which I couldn't say anything past that because they were treating it as dead serious. So I just ignored them. I did a charity speaking engagement. That's what it's a charity it's called Altitude. It's a charity for getting underprivileged kids in the Northeast into technology and stuff. So like right up my alley. And I did a talk about my background and how I got into it, blah, 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 blah. So then I'd said to the group, like, oh, I did a gig at 9 o'clock this morning. Just some of my jokes went down like a lead balloon, and they treated it dead serious. I was just like, oh, shit. So bit by bit, here we go. This is for the video listeners. Bit by bit, we're going to map out Nathan's house, and then we're going to rob him of his Pokemon cards.
Hmm. Yeah, that's
So,
right.
yeah,
They're all
interesting.
my records. My records are behind me.
Uh,
Yes,
And
and
a
my
dog.
cat
We'll steal his dog.
and a dog.
a cat
Dog.
and a dog.
Yeah, they get on
Dogs and cats living
swimmingly.
together. That's his
I
time.
know.
So, yeah, that is kind of the weekend roundup.
Hmm. Basically, yeah.
Yeah. Also, you've had some news as well, Chris, haven't you?
Oh, I've had a kid. Yeah, I've had
Yeah.
another kid.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I had my second child, a baby girl. Today's her due date, actually. So we're recording this on the 30th of June.
Oh, well,
Today's
she
her
comes
actual
now.
due date. Well, she's asleep in the other room, so yeah.
That would
But
be weird.
it's great. So for any parents out there listening and who've got more than one kid, I hope your experience is very similar. You can't just got back from the hospital and life just went straight back on. Like I haven't started my
Yeah.
paternity leave yet because I delayed it for a little bit because I had some training and stuff, and it's been a piece of piss. Like it's been fantastic. It helps that my firstborn, she's a little bit older, and she is very excited and has been nothing but a massive help. So it's like having three people to look after the kid instead. It's great,
Yeah.
and the dog's great with her as well. But yeah, it's amazing. Our little family unit is complete because my wife said, and I quote, "Either get the snip or I'll snip it for you." So
Oh, that could be a live Think Tankards thing.
Oh yeah, live vasectomy.
yeah, this was really funny. So my wife had a TENS machine for pain relief during labor, and she loved it. And she went to get an epidural, and they said, "Oh, can you take the TENS machine off?" So I was like, "All right, okay." And like they were stood there, scrubbed up with the needles, and I was like, "Oh shit, okay, yeah, yeah." So I went to grab it. Didn't think I grabbed the TENS machine with my bare hand. It's
For
it's
Ian,
electric currents. It's electric currents
yes, yeah.
going
I
through
was
very
going to say for
sticky
Ian
pads.
Oh,
and anyone who doesn't know, it gives you small electric shocks, and
But
they are good
we
fun.
had it on there's a setting of 0, off, 10, max. My wife had it set to like 8. So there's two doctors stood there like that, like because there's two people. There's an anaesthetist and there's the other anaesthetist, and there's the midwife. Then there's my wife. Then there's me. But I grabbed the TENS machine on the sticky pad. It stuck to my hands, and I started screaming. I was like, fuck, and I was trying to get it off. But because it was on both of my hands, because I'd grabbed them both at the same time, it was like my hands were like stuck like that with the TENS machine in them. So my hands was getting shocked to fuck. Meanwhile, the doctors are like laughing and like they're laughing and shaking the needles because they're laughing so much while I'm like dancing around. And it wasn't until like I yanked and pulled the cables. Oh, they were fucking.
Wow.
It was like the good thing was though, like my wife was in like obviously quite a bit of pain, heaving out
That
an
is good.
8-pound child. So she just started laughing, and then she was like, "You're gonna need to keep hurting yourself. It helps with the pain." I was like, I did meatloaf. I was like, "I'll do anything for love, but I won't do that." Well, in fact, what I said is no fucking chance.
Right. Which is
So,
fair.
yeah.
That's the radio edit.
Yeah, it's been a lovely week. It's been idyllic, but I am very, very tired. I am, but that comes with the territory. It is what it is. And yeah, so I am very excited to talk about this guy today because, and I say this every time we bring up someone on the podcast, boy, I hope this doesn't ruin my memories of this person.
Right. Okay. So, well, it's me to do this episode.
There was an Ian
So,
episode.
actually, we haven't
It
actually
isn't Ian
introduced
episode.
ourselves.
Oh my god, 14 episodes. Sorry, I'm Chris.
I'm Ian.
Oh, I'm Nathan, by the way.
And
Yeah, sorry,
that's all right.
totally forgot. And it is an Ian episode. Sorry, Ian, take it away.
Rightio. So obviously, as a man of great breeding and everything, I'm a big fan of professional wrestling. So it falls upon me to ask to what extent my co-hosts are familiar with the Graps. So I'll start with Nathan.
I used to watch a lot of wrestling, like a lot. I used to watch it a lot as a kid through the Attitude Era, watching WCW before that as well. Played a lot of the video games, was pretty much a master at nearly every single wrestling video game that has come out, apart from recently. Haven't got too into it. When did I stop? I think I stopped once the Undertaker's undefeated WrestleMania streak was finally defeated.
Oh.
I was like, yeah, that's enough for me. I am done. That's the end of that chapter. I still watch clips every now and again, do still follow certain things, like certain people who are still in the game. My favorite wrestler, can you have a guess who my favorite wrestler could be?
Chris Benoit.
Scotty Too Hotty.
Not Chris Benoit or Scotty Too Hotty, but it is It's Chris Jericho.
Oh, okay.
I love Y2J. He's the boy. Winning both titles in one night is one of the greatest pieces of wrestling history to ever happen, in my personal opinion, apart from two of my favorite wrestling moments, which are the introduction of the Shockmaster. If anyone has ever not seen that video, please look up Shockmaster. You need to watch it. It's fucking hilarious.
Is that where you've got two fingers in and then all of a sudden you just pop?
No, unfortunately not. It's worse than that. It's basically just this fucking dude in like a stormtrooper helmet full of glitter who was put on at the last second. They needed someone like at the last minute, so they brought this fucking guy in with this helmet. And he's supposed to be acting all badass, and he comes in and just falls through the screen, and his helmet comes off, and it's so fucking funny. And also when Titus O'Neil accidentally slides under the ring is because he's so oily, he falls over running in and slides directly under. Those are my two favorite wrestling moments. So I am a wrestling fan, was a wrestling fan, still appreciate the heart.
Good stuff. Chris?
As a kid, my uncle Matt was massive into wrestling. Like him and his friends were that. In fact, they would have been like, well, he's dead now, but he would have been like around your age, Ian. Wake up call. Sorry, mate.
Okay, thank you.
Rip in peace.
I am seeing for GP.
Yeah, good. Yeah, so him and his
Ready
friends
for
were
the
like
Shockmaster.
The Shockmaster.
Bend over and cough.
And The doctor will be in soon. Uh, yeah, no, him and his friends were like huge into it. So like they'd wrestle and I'd watch because I was a little bit younger, and we used to watch like Sky One every Sunday when it was on like all day. Even like built a wrestling ring in the back garden
Wow.
with like
Nice.
sticks and ropes. So this is like late 90s, early 2000s, where like we went outside to play that kind of stuff. So like I was always dead aware of it, and then I think when I was at college, there was like The Rock versus like John Cena or something like that.
Yeah.
Was that like
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that was like the last wrestling match I watched because we stayed up like 3 o'clock in the morning to watch it. But my actual experience with wrestling over the past 20 years or so has been through grappling and MMA and stuff, where I'd actually
Okay.
I used to do like dedicated wrestling classes for like Olympic wrestling. And being a bigger guy with like a lower center of gravity, wrestling's always been something that I've done better than like the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or than like stand-up striking. So actual wrestling is one of my favorite sports to do. I still dabble and I'm currently heading back that way because I've been going to the gym a lot more recently. So I'm kind of like, oh, now like I said, my little girl's getting to the age now where I want her to do a martial art. So MMA, naturally, that would involve wrestling. So that's my involvement with it.
Okay. Nice. So
I would love
kind
to
of like
wrestle you, Chris.
si-
I'd love to wrestle you.
It'd be like I'd be me and you. It'd be like Big Bob in Fight Club.
It would, yeah.
Yeah, just
Meatloaf reference again. Like
yeah. Oh
Meatloaf's come
yeah,
in twice.
yeah. His name was Robert Paulson. It's just me smothering you in my tits.
I'd love that.
Okay, so it sounds like we all kind of were watching it around the same time in terms of like late 90s, 2000s, and then it's just a case of where we kind of fell off watching.
Last one. I used to have an amazing hoodie when I was at university that said WWF, and it was a panda hitting another panda with a steel chair.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
it was
that's a
the
classic.
best thing I've ever owned.
So it's a good image, definitely.
Yeah.
So for my part, again, I was watching around the late 90s and through the 2000s. I actually got into it through video games
hmm
rather than the other way around. So I've said on the podcast previously, me and my brother, big diehard Nintendo fans. But the way we kind of got into it was like friends who also had like N64s would lend us like WCW versus NWO World
Mhm.
Tour / Revenge, and we'd be playing these games and we were like, who? It's like we understood the concept of pro wrestling, but we had no idea who the actual wrestlers were. So I started watching, because the only WCW available to us was like a Channel 5 highlights package called Worldwide.
Yeah.
So I got a few of those people in there. And then they started showing Sunday Night Heat and very select WWF pay-per-views on Channel 4 beginning in 2000 with the Royal Rumble, which is an amazing pay-per-view in and of itself. You have the street
It's my
fight with
my favorite.
Cactus Jack and Triple H. You've got quite a fun Rumble, like with Too Cool and Rikishi dancing before Rikishi knocks his two dancing idiot friends out of the ring. It just goes on from there. And it has a beauty contest, of which there is a joke winner, which again got Channel 4 to immediately regret the partnership that they got into with
Who won it again?
Mae Young.
Mae Young, the old lady. Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
that's right.
Didn't she give birth to a hand or
In
a
a
head?
different event, yes, that is what
Yes.
she did. With
Was
Mark
it
Henry.
Mark Henry, yes.
Yes.
That's right.
That's right.
Wrestling is serious business.
Yes, so for those of you who haven't been bitten by the pro wrestling bug, wrestling is inherently ridiculous. I mean, it's kind of moved away from it slightly more nowadays. Nathan's favourite Chris Jericho is still wrestling today in the promotion AEW, which is the alternative wrestling company for those of us who, like me, can't actually stand WWE nowadays. So I've been down to watch the big shows that they've put on in Wembley Stadium the past few years. I'm going back again end of August. Screw Edinburgh. I want to see the Graps. So
Sorry, is that because you're not invited to the Edinburgh Fringe
I
Festival?
may not have
Or it's-
qualified for the competition we talked about previously.
You don't need to qualify the competition. You could also just be invited to perform.
Yeah, there is that, but then I didn't feel the need to join the kind of easy gateway.
Oh,
Oh, hark, it's Martin Hunter. So, anyway,
he's not
47.
performing. He's not. He's not there.
I'm just talking about
I'm talking about-
shortcuts. Well, congratulations.
Thanks. I just want to get it out there.
If you can get the time off work, obviously.
I've got it off. I'll call in sick anyway. No, don't listen to this shit.
So, what makes pro wrestling a viable thing in the hinterland today, nowadays, is the fact that it became so mainstream in the 1980s. And whilst pro wrestling has always been a part of the Americana Carnival tradition, not to say it isn't in Britain, but at a much smaller scale, pro wrestling in its original territory system was prevalent across the United States. So it's always been a thing, but it is arguably in the 1980s when all the territories started to coalesce, got taken over by one specific promotion, which is now today known as World Wrestling Entertainment, or the WWE, formerly the World Wrestling Federation, WWF, before, as Nathan has alluded to, Chris has alluded to, the Panda people kicked its arse.
Yeah.
One of the few lawsuits that the WWE has actually lost. They're quite good at the old litigation for the detriment of society. But
Which is surprising for the amount of lawsuits that Vince McMahon has most likely been through in his time. It's
We're-
too long
Yeah.
Too long to talk about his crimes and his back catalogue of evil.
We will touch upon Vince McMahon and crimes and trials because it does play into our subject matter today. But the figure, the kind of galvanizing figure, because obviously it's one thing for all these wrestling companies to come together at some point, but they needed a central figure to really drive the interest and drive the audiences to make it a viable proposition. So whilst Vince McMahon Jr. was the proprietor of the World Wrestling Federation who created WrestleMania and, made the WWE into what it is today, it had to focus around a star. And that star is someone you will have heard of even if you're not a wrestling fan. And that man's name is Hulk Hogan. And we're going
The clown.
I'm afraid not. He came later. So let's get into who Hulk Hogan really was, for better or worse, because we will find out things about him. I will say, Chris, were you being utterly sincere at the beginning, saying you're worried about what this episode might unearth, or are you fully aware he's not necessarily the greatest guy?
I am not aware at all. I have purposefully... Well, I didn't even know anything about it until you mentioned it a few weeks ago when you said you were thinking about doing this.
Right.
And I've purposely, because of that, I'm very good at keeping myself spoiler-free.
Good.
Because I read a lot of books,
Sure.
so I don't want people, So I don't know anything about the man. And to be honest, every time I think about him, it's like a coin flip about whether I'm actually thinking about the Hulk or the Hulkamaniac, or I'm thinking about Dog the Bounty Hunter. So,
So this is going to be a live massacre of someone's childhood.
Yeah, because as well, I've just remembered that I enjoy wrestling more than I thought, because before I met I was going to say current wife, I've only had one. Before I met my wife, when I was dating. Yeah, but when I was dating, I took a girl on a date to wrestling in Darlington at the Dolphin Centre is it Dolphin Centre in Darlington in Teesside?
It was a pool, proper. Isn't it?
Yeah, but it's like a community side of it as well. Yeah.
Okay.
And so I took a girl to like a proper wrestling show like that, and Chesley Street, the village near me, they do the show style wrestling as well, and I was really interested in it. So yeah, this is going to be fucking horrific for me.
It might be. Just, or if only just because I was thinking it might not be just because when you were growing up, Hogan was starting to wind down his kind of active career, or certainly when you were growing up, he's probably more associated with the NWO and being a heel. I will try and explain for the etymology minded as much wrestling parlance as possible going through, and I think it's crossed over into common parlance today, but very quickly in wrestling, a face is a good guy, a shortened version of babyface, and a heel, which I don't think shortened for anything, is a bad guy. So if you turn face, it usually means a bad person coming to the light side. If it's turning heel, it's a good guy going bad.
Yeah. For example, in real world, Elon Musk's heel turn was when he called that guy a paedophile for telling him that, no, we can't send a little submarine down to save all those boys. That was the start of Elon Musk's heel turn.
Great example. Absolutely.
Yeah,
we'll come up. We'll touch on another crypto bro later on, or tech bro, or one of those.
Wow. There's like a weird little intersection in things I'm interested in, because I'm a big fan of like horror films and horror media. And I've mentioned before in this podcast, there's a channel I watch on YouTube called Dead Meat, and every year they do the Horror Royal Rumble, where they play the latest wrestling game, but all the characters are custom characters to be like custom horror characters. So you'll have like Pinhead fighting Reagan from The Exorcist,
lovely,
and stuff like that. But I did know about heel because there's another channel I follow called 616 Entertainment. And that guy is a massive, massive wrestling fan, but he covers horror films. So he's got like a 6-hour video on the Halloween franchise, a 6-hour video on like the Nightmare on Elm Street. Sure. So I watch it for the horror content, but he always throws in like wrestling analogies and talks about wrestlers. So I've got like this little like osmosis knowledge of wrestling as well.
I mean, I do want to start getting into the subject matter sooner rather than later, but were you aware that Chucky has appeared on WCW programming?
No, but I'm not surprised.
Yeah. As has RoboCop and Jay Leno. You know,
serious business.
The worst characters in horror. Anyway, so that's a gross misreading of RoboCop there. But anyway. So let's get into Hulk Hogan. He was born Terry Jean Bollea in August 1953 in Atlanta, Georgia, but he moved to where he is more synonymous, that is Tampa in Florida, aged 18 months. Yes, Hulk Hogan, very much a Florida man. And
yeah, we were all thinking it. Yeah.
He was the son of a construction foreman called Peter Bollea and a homemaker and dance teacher, Ruth, both of whom had slightly different names, but there we go. And he had one older brother named Alan, who died in 1986 at the height of his brother's fame, at the age of 38 from a drug overdose. So that's mightily unfortunate. He played baseball and bass guitar in his teens, and like Chris, he started getting into wrestling, aged 16. Now, a lot of the early days of Hogan's career, I'm going to have to take it with a pinch of salt, because as we will get to later on, Hulk Hogan is a massive liar, and we'll get into some of the more entertaining of his lies towards the end, because, again, Chris, I'll have to give you a warning up front. There are some dark turns in this episode. So
is he a rapist?
I will have to inject a bit of humour towards the end with regards to some of the tallest tales that Hulk Hogan has ever told. And they are genuinely
right,
funny.
let's just get this
rapist.
Let's just get this out the way up front. Is he a diddler?
No, there are perhaps rumours that he had an unhealthy obsession with his own teenage daughter, but then that's just because he has a lot of... There's such a Venn diagram between him and Vince McMahon. It's really odd.
What is it with elderly, blonde, American, powerful men and their teenage daughters?
Trump will also feature in this as well. Anyway,
He will, yes.
Oh yeah, he was in wrestling, wasn't he?
He was very much. He actually, his Trump Casino venue, I believe, was the site of WrestleManias. Off the top of my head, I'm going to say like 5 and 6, but he definitely hosted a couple of WrestleManias at his casinos, and then he featured years later in a hair versus hair match with Vince, where they had 2 proxies doing the actual wrestling for them. But that was a good 25 years later. So Hogan got connected through a legendary tag team called Jack and Gerald Briscoe, who saw him wrestling and or playing the bass, and connected him with a man called Hiro Matsuda, the first ethnically Japanese wrestler to win a National Wrestling Alliance, NWA, World Singles title. Not to be confused with the other NWA. The National Wrestling Alliance was basically the governing body of all of the territories. And whilst they did have attitude, very few of them, certainly back at that time, were African American. So, yes, so he started his training in the end of the 60s, beginning of the 70s. Apparently, Matsuda broke Hogan's leg in his first training session to prove that wrestling is a serious business. But that could also be a lie. So, having his leg broken didn't actually deter Hogan, so he continued to train, and initially, when getting into his first few professional matches, he donned a mask and assumed the persona of the Super Destroyer. And then, after a brief career hiatus, he wrestled for the Alabama-based promotion Gulf Coast Championship Wrestling in 1978. Then the Memphis-based promotion Continental Wrestling Association in 1979. He formed a tag team with Ed Leslie, and they were known as the Boulder Brothers. So he went professionally by the name Terry Boulder, with his brother Ed Boulder. And that was his kind of gig through to 1979. And then he had 2 name changes for 2 different territories who used him the closing end of the 70s, beginning of the 80s, aka when it all goes to shit in Boogie Nights. So for
yeah.
Sorry, question: why is it like that wrestling is so big in America? Like, what is it? Is it just the theatrics? Like, is it just like a cultural thing, or
lack of education?
Like,
It's so American.
I think moreover, it's so if we're gonna compare it directly to Britain, say, so again, as I said previous, there is British wrestling, but it is kind of restricted to like fairgrounds and circuses. So, for example, you'll know Stephen/William Regal as a character. In his teenage years, he would fight in this kind of environment in Blackpool, where basically it was a kind of invite anyone into the ring and see if they could last like a few rounds. Not unlike Spider-Man taking on Bonesaw / Macho Man Randy Savage. But in this case, what they do in Britain is because, and this is the carny nature of it, so it's rigged against the public from the beginning, is as they were stepping through the rings, so their heads down as they're guarding it, the wrestler will immediately knee them in the head. And like from there, you know, it's pretty much game over for whoever's stepping in. So it's that kind of scuzzy, lowbrow kind of thing that would be associated with circuses. In America, yes, the circus tradition, but also the kind of rodeo tradition, the kind of outdoor festival tradition. And what would get people coming back to the shows is that whilst you'd have your kind of repertory theatre group of local wrestlers, your local star, your local hero, you'd also have like visiting stars from other territories come across to challenge for the title or just set up programs, and that would be a good way of keeping people coming back for more. So it was a more regular form of entertainment in America to rival, you know, your kind of big sports in your American football, basketball, baseball. I mean, my favourite's ice hockey, but that isn't quite as accessible because you need a giant hall that can, you know, maintain ice. Yeah. So yeah,
they do have the better jerseys though. So.
True. Oh, absolutely. I've been wearing mine in this current weather. It's a necessity, especially when you perform comedy in a jacket.
I just want to state that we mentioned the Spider-Man scene when he's fighting Macho Man Randy Savage, yes, aka Bonesaw, and there's a very problematic part in that where Spider-Man says to him, "That's a cute outfit. Did your husband make it for you?" Now, Bonesaw could have said, "Yes, actually. Yes, he did." And that's okay. It is still June. In time of recording, it is still Pride Month. We are here for you, Macho Man Randy Savage.
Mm-hmm. Until midnight, then you're getting lynched.
Yeah, till midnight, then you can go fuck yourself. We're all reform after that.
More on Macho Man Randy Savage later. So he was renamed twice at the beginning of the 80s. For Georgia Championship Wrestling, he went by the name Sterling Golden, in which his opponents were a very young Bret Hart, Andre the Giant, and Stan Hansen, who was a big brawling American man who largely plied his trade in Japan. And then the other company that he worked for was the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, the WWF, which would become the WWF, as Hulk Hogan, which was technically based in the New York region, but his kind of area primarily was Pennsylvania, which, you know, not a million miles away. And Hulk Hogan won most all of his matches because he was a well-pushed babyface wrestler. And now this is under Vince McMahon Sr., because the Vince McMahon we know and hate is Vince McMahon Jr. He ostensibly inherited the WWF from Vince Sr. in 1982 or 3 and did so having grown up actually away from Vince Sr. He grew up in like a trailer park in North Carolina, whereas his dad, who's like estranged from his mum, is running this very successful wrestling promotion in the New York region. So before the two McMahons kind of reconcile and Vince Jr. takes over, Hogan is wrestling, and it gets to be exclusively for Vince Sr. And as I say, he does very well for himself. He goes on a winning streak. He's winning 2-on-1 handicap matches. He's beating the then WWF champion Bob Backlund, but by count out, so that the title doesn't change hands. And then in May and June 1980, he goes on his first excursion to New Japan, where, again, he'd mostly win. He'd only start losing when he'd take on, again, Andre the Giant, because he was very much a featured star in the late 70s, early 80s, through the 80s, but his kind of prime when he was breaking on through was the late 70s. And so,
just to say though, very, very quickly, just to say that the terminology does change throughout the years, and they don't call them handicap matches anymore. They're now called differently abled matches.
Yes, but in the less enlightened days,
it's a good one.
A handicap match would mean multiple people versus a singular person.
One guy in a wheelchair.
I would watch the Paralympics UWE. That would be
that being said, though,
great.
Right? If you ever wonder, kind of like, you know, like, well, no, not to wonder, but if you ever want to see something really inspiring, this isn't really even a joke. Watch. There's a guy who's only got like one arm who does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he's like a brown belt now, and legitimately, those nubs are fucking lethal. Like
Well,
I've seen him. Like I've watched. Like legitimately. Like this guy. He is legitimately tapping people like fucking three times his size because he just he's learned to work with his body in the way that it is in such a way that he's overcome anything else. Like and so like I've seen this Brazilian jiu-jitsu is a guy with literally one arm. He's got no legs and one arm, and he's tapping out people left, right, and center. It's fucking
Wow.
unbelievable. Because like a lot of with like Brazilian jiu-jitsu, when you got them on the ground, is a lot of it is pressure making you feel uncomfortable. So he's legitimately like he's got his nub in like their chest bone and stuff like that, and it really fucking hurts. So one of the things you do in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, for example, is called like neon belly, and it's so uncomfortable that it makes people panic. So obviously you can't do the neon belly, but he does things like that. That yeah, sorry, it's just the idea of like obviously people kicking shit out at someone in a wheelchair made me think of the one person you wouldn't want to do that to because he'd take you to the ground and absolutely fuck you up.
yeah. Lethal Nubs is band name of the week.
Yeah, good stuff.
We're having a new
Better than
segment. I will find a band name of the week through each recording.
Good
I
Lethal
still, I
Nubs
don't know,
is the
I
band name
still
of the
like,
week.
I still like Shiny Gusset.
Shiny Gusset's
Or,
good, but that was like weeks ago. We have a new
yeah, it
one every
was.
week. Lethal Nubs.
Good stuff.
Sorry, Ian. Sorry, carry on.
So, um, so his career went on like that through to April 1981 when he was released from the WWF by Vince Sr. Now, I'll give you a multiple choice quiz as to why Hogan might have been released by Vince McMahon Sr. Is it A, because it was his very first steroids violation? Is it B, because he accepted the role of Thunderlips in Rocky 3? Or C, did he sleep with McMahon's wife?
See,
All of them?
gotta be
Is it all of
C.
them?
Linda McMahon.
No, that's Vince Jr. again.
Well, he could
We're
have
talking
done that
about Vince
anyway.
Sr.
Okay, C anyway.
C anyway. Okay. The correct answer is B. Hogan played the role of
Oh.
Thunderlips in Rocky 3.
Yeah, he did.
And Vince Sr. didn't want him to do that. He didn't see any potential, Hollywood crossover. He didn't see how it would benefit the business. So that was that. And so Hogan went on. He signed with the American Wrestling Association, the AWA, in August 1981 and continued to win all the time with them while still doing tours with New Japan Pro Wrestling. However, Vince Jr., who had arguably more vision, for better or worse, than his father, decided that actually, yes, celebrity in wrestling is crossover is great for business. So after Hogan defeated Antonio Inoki, who was kind of the Hogan of Japan, in a tournament for the original version of the International Wrestling Grand Prix Championship, or the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, which to this day is still the main belt of New Japan, he was re-signed to the WWF at the end of 1983 by Vince Jr. and after winning his return match on the 27th of December, Hogan finally won a domestic World Championship, having won all these matches, but never actually won a world title. So he was a very strong babyface. He was never made to look weak, but never actually transitioned into him being a champion of any of the territories. But Bob Backlund, who had held the belt since February 1978, lost 28 days prior to Hogan's win to the Iron Sheik. The Iron Sheik, you might know from Twitter, like Alive and Dead, whose posts were basically all in caps and in some ways said, fuck the Hulk Hogan. I break his back, make him humble. It was very entertaining back in the day. And then he died and people kept doing it, but yeah. I mean, it probably wasn't him doing it in the first place, but there we go. It was too entertaining for you to care. Anyway,
No.
Hogan won the WWF title on the 23rd of January 1984, and from that win, the commentator Gorilla Monsoon, not his actual name, famously declared, "Hulkamania is here."
Right.
Gentlemen, how would you describe Hulkamania?
It makes me want to rip my shirt off
Your
from
yellow shirt.
right here. I'm not going. Yeah, my yellow shirt. I'm not going to Hulkamania. It's I don't know. It's a way of life, really, isn't it? It's been all about Hulk Hogan. It's there's everything like we're all Hulkamaniacs, really. Some didn't even know we were Hulkamaniacs until certain things happened, and then we
Well,
were
Well,
told we were Hulkamaniacs.
for me, it's always sunny in Philadelphia, where they're talking and get Charlie and Mac are talking, and they're calling each other people jabronis all episode,
Hmm.
and then they're saying like, well, now he's going into a state of Hulkamania. It's like nothing can hurt him. It's like a Caesar of strength. And then later on, they're like, he's blonde, he's got the Chinese hair and the skin of a hot dog. So I would describe it as a very strong state of a very aesthetically unique individual. But no, isn't it? Hulkamania is just like this is the point in the film where the montage would start and
sure,
the
yeah.
newspaper titles go
So-
across the screen.
Hulkamania is basically the word you would use for the fandom surrounding Hulk Hogan in this era. So in this era, he'd come out wearing yellow and red attire, customary yellow kind of trunks, yellow and red boots. In later years, a bandana because of his very unique hair, or lack thereof. And we have a question.
Have you seen the video of all the blokes that are on? I think they're just out on the drink, and they're on a train station, and there's some police that stop this man and say they're looking for someone who's been causing trouble, who's dressed in fancy dress like Hulk Hogan, and he's wearing a yellow t-shirt, a red bandana, and he's got like a horseshoe tash, but all his mates dying laughing because it's just how he dresses all the time. He's not actually in fancy dress. They're all like killing themselves, and even the police are just killing themselves laughing because he's like, "What fancy dress?" It's great.
He comes out to a theme tune that has been written by wrestling manager and indeed real life manager Jimmy Hart, no relation to Bret Hart and family, called Real American. So Hulkamania is also meant to embody Americana. He has a mantra of 3 demandments, which is training, saying your prayers, and eating your vitamins, dude. And there was merchandise everywhere. WrestleMania began in 1985. He headlined all of the WrestleManias when he was employed within. And that title reign that began in January 1984 was 4 years long.
Wow.
So there was a typical rhythm in that Hogan would be in the ring against an opponent. He'd start off strong, and then gradually his opponent would wear him down, and it would look like to all the little Hulkamaniacs that Hulk might be defeated until just when it looks like that would happen, Hulk would then start no-selling, which is a term that means pretend that any of the hits don't actually hurt whatsoever. And he would Hulk up. He wouldn't turn green. He did actually have... There were certain words the WWF couldn't use in announcing him. So he was... Because of Marvel having
like, couldn't say like
copyright.
incredible. Yeah.
So he could never be referred to as the Incredible Hulk Hogan. So he did get referred to as the Immortal Hulk Hogan instead. And so he would Hulk up. He would start shaking, because the idea would be that the love and support of all the Hulkamaniacs would be powering him up into a state of invincibility. And then after that, I bet that got caught on camera. So ultimately He would then knock them backwards with a few punches, big boot them down to the canvas, and then do his signature leg drop across their windpipe and pin them for the 1, 2, 3. Now, it's kind of impressive, particularly with large opponents. I mentioned Andre the Giant. They very famously had a main event at WrestleMania 3 where Andre the Giant was legitimately over 7 foot and he was getting older. He wasn't really losing weight. It was around the time that Andre the Giant was making the Princess Bride. So that's a fair idea of what kind of physical shape he was in at the time. But Hogan was able to body slam Andre the Giant. It was said, wow, this is the first time it's ever happened. It hadn't, but you were allowed to lie back in those days because there was no internet. And then, obviously, you're not going to pick a guy like him up again, so you drop the leg across his neck, you win, you retain your title. Now, if you've ever actually attempted a leg drop, never try any wrestling move at home, folks. But if you've ever landed in a seated position, it fucks up your tailbone something horrid. And Hogan was doing this every night for his career for like most of the 80s and a lot of the 90s. So he has in later interviews regretted that was his finisher because it would make sense given his jacked up arms, which he refers to as his 68-inch pythons or whatever. And he said, I should have just done like a headlock or something like that instead. But there you go. He would ultimately lose the title again in a cheaty fashion because Hogan almost never lost clean, especially at this stage. He had something called creative control, meaning that he would have a say on exactly how his matches went and what the finishes were. And it wasn't so much a problem in WWF because Vince was behind it anyway. In WCW, it was absolutely killer, but we'll get into that. So in February 1988, Hogan lost the title when Andre the Giant beat him with a pinfall victory despite Hogan raising his left shoulder before the count of 2 could be reached. It was revealed post-match that the referee who worked the match was not the assigned referee Dave Hebner, but rather his twin brother Earl Hebner, who had been hired by Vermilion. Earl Hebner is a name known to wrestling fans, especially the Harts family. But Earl Hebner had been hired by the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase to cheat Hogan out of the belt because immediately after the match, Andre then just gave the belt to DiBiase. However, WWF top brass said the title can only change hands via pin or submission. Therefore, whilst he acknowledged that Andre won, him surrendering the belt was ruled invalid, and he declared the title to be vacant, which meant at WrestleMania 4 there was a tournament to crown the next champion. And this leads to the Mega Powers storyline, in which Hulk Hogan didn't actually win it back. It was won back by his longtime rival, certainly beginning at this stage, Macho Man Randy Savage. But Hogan went out to congratulate him at the very end of the show and kept posing with him to basically hog the limelight. And the two of them formed a tag team called the Mega Powers and were successful throughout. But the problem was Savage was accompanied by his valet and real-life wife, Miss Elizabeth, and Hogan, being a bad person, did actually have kind of in storyline, there was a match in which they were tagging. Miss Elizabeth got knocked off the apron and Hogan carried her to the back, leaving Savage on his own to lose, after there'd been several kind of winks and nods that Hogan might have his eye on Miss Elizabeth. So who turns heel in this situation? Naturally Savage, and he goes on to lose his belt to Hogan in the main event of WrestleMania 5. The Mega Powers explode. Now, I'm going to dash through more of his WWF career because he'd stopped, because by this point WrestleMania 5 was 1989, so Hulkamania had been going on for a full 5 years now. So guessing potentially a little bit stale. But whilst he was still in the WWF, he shot the movie No Holds Barred during his second championship run. Hulk Hogan did movies. I don't know if you guys have seen any of them.
No.
Not willingly.
Just to run down a few of the outside of wrestling projects he did. There was No Holds Barred, where he played a fictional version of himself, standing up to evil TV barons. He had a TV show called Suburban Commando in 1991, in which he rode a speedboat around Florida. Quite famously, there was Mr. Nanny in 1993, a family comedy in which he looked after children, but proved not to be completely good at it, but they were under some kind of threat. And then in the mid-90s, Santa with Muscles, where he played a man who lost his memory and thought he was Santa.
Jesus, I've not watched. I haven't watched like Hulk Hogan, but I have watched a lot of wrestling films with. There's a really good actress, Angela White. She does a lot of wrestling. Her films are fantastic. Yeah, her films are amazing. So I would heavily recommend you watch that.
She's very good at submission holds.
Yeah. She turns face towards things quite a lot of the time. It's good.
I'm gonna watch some after this.
Same.
Yeah, I mean, so just to be thankful that none of that was my homework for you guys. I gave you something a bit easier. So Hogan's still on top, to diminishing returns through to WrestleMania 8 in 1992, after which he takes a leave of absence because around this time there is the WWF steroid trial, because a doctor called George Zahorian was convicted by the federal prosecutors for supplying illegal anabolic steroids. And one of the pieces of information revealed during the trial was that Zahorian had supplied steroids to Vince McMahon at his office within the Titan Towers HQ of the WWF/Titan Sports, which was the larger company in Stamford, Connecticut. And Zahorian started working with federal prosecutors who had McMahon in their sights. So, not being a total idiot, Vince decided that he would close down his passion project in 1992, the World Bodybuilding Federation, which only had lasted a year. But if you're going to try and play down the accusation of steroids, a bodybuilding federation is obviously not the right way to progress. That didn't stop him being indicted in November 1993, by which point Hogan's contract had actually expired with the WWF. He had his last match at the King of the Ring pay-per-view in June of that year. And the trial was set for July 1994, with 3 charges going forward to the actual trial, 2 counts of distributing steroids, and 1 of conspiracy to distribute steroids. So where does Hogan fit into the overall trial? He was the key witness for the prosecution. Now, Hogan had denied on a talk show called the Arsenio Hall Show in 1991 as to having ever taken steroids. He said, it was all prayers and vitamins and training. So, obviously, to look like Hulk Hogan, that's all you have to do. Now,
dear God.
Yeah, again, we'll get to the separate section of lies of Hulk Hogan later on. However, when he was actually called to give evidence under oath, he was one of 11 wrestlers who were called to testify against McMahon. Hogan kind of swerved them, another wrestling term, meaning not doing exactly what was on the script, saying that Vince had never personally given steroids to him or demanded that he took any, but admitted that he had taken steroids in his career. He downplayed the amount he'd done to try and pour as much cold water on the scandal of it as possible, but the damage had been done. His reputation of vitamins and prayers and training was undone by the fact that he had said under oath, yes, I have obviously taken steroids. So that had not helped his image. That being said, whilst he was technically giving evidence against Vince, that bit of evidence was one of the nails in the coffin of the prosecution. The other nails being an actual wrestler called Nails, who not only stated that Vince had taken him to take steroids, but he also admitted that he hated Vince's guts and he'd been fired after physically assaulting him. So the credibility of the prosecution was basically shot. The judge immediately ruled out 2 of the charges, and of the final charge, which was conspiracy to distribute steroids, the jury found McMahon not guilty. So Zahorian, the doctor, then went to prison for 3 years based upon his original sentencing. Vince resumed control of the WWF after it had been placed in the hands of his wife Linda, who is now the Secretary of State for Education in Trump's America, because why not? Hogan, no longer employed by Vince, had basically saved him from prison due to his testimony, but was now no longer working for him. And WWF swung away from pushing your known steroid-infused wrestlers like Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior, who was a very vascular man, amongst other things, and went to the slimmer, more physically athletic wrestlers of the new generation that starred the likes of Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, and the aforementioned Doink the Clown. Finally, the steroids trial had a profound effect on young Stephanie McMahon, the daughter of Vince and Linda, who was 17 during the trial. And this manifested because years later, during WWF programming, in the immediate aftermath of the 9/11 attacks on New York, she compared the 9/11 terrorist attacks to the federal government's legal prosecution of her father. And I quote, a few years, and this was on live television, a few years ago, some people tried to destroy my family. And that's exactly how America feels right now. Because on Tuesday, America was attacked. But because America is a united nation, together we stand strong.
Oh my God, it's this. Do you know what is it with American celebrities in 9/11 making them look like absolute arseholes? Do you remember that Dave Chappelle's got that whole joke about Ja Rule? Let's see what Ja Rule thinks. It's like live on TV, like, Ja Rule. Dave Chappelle's like, nobody gives a fuck what Ja Rule thinks at this time. But then, do you remember, I think Mariah Carey was live on TV during 9/11. Have you seen that?
No.
I think she was live on telly during 9/11, and she's like lounged on the sofa like this.
Unbothered.
Right.
And she doesn't know what to do, so she doesn't even get up. So she just stays like...
I have a feeling that's because she was promoting her film, her very critically reviled film, Glitter, which had like a tie-in album at the time. But, I mean, it was reviled because it was bad, but also no one went to see it because of 9/11. In the same way that Trey Parker and Matt Stone had a very short-lived George W. Bush sitcom called That's My Bush, that came out like the week before 9/11 or something like that. So that,
and in the same way that the band Drowning Pool brought their album out a week before 9/11, which had the song Let the Bodies Hit the Floor.
Yeah.
And that song went really big and then was suddenly not allowed to be played on radio anymore. And they did not do as well as they should have done as a
That
band.
and so many other songs, like
Yeah.
the
Jump by Van Halen.
Burning Down the House by Talking Heads.
Yeah.
There was a weird amount of sense, like Gay Bar, well, no, that was 2003. But
The band.
I remember Top of the Pops edited Let's Start a Nuclear War. I think that was more Iraq War related. Anyway,
It was a whip, wasn't it? Let's start.
It's not just. So I remember studying this at college when I did politics, but not just American celebrities making 9/11 made them arseholes. There was a civil servant called Joe Moore.
I remember this.
Yeah, within half an hour of like the second plane hitting the tower, she sent an email to everyone in the transport secretary's office saying now was a very good time to get any bad news out because it'll get buried.
Yeah.
And that ended up. I didn't that end up with him resigning because like wasn't it like you had to stand by like it was like stand by your civil servants.
It was a woman, Joe Moore. I remember her face being plastered.
No, I mean like didn't the transport secretary resign or something because someone's more senior than her was really got in trouble for it because it was like he was. They were responsible for her.
She was made equally as culpable. I remember her being like partially the face of it because again they don't like seeing women succeed, even women with very dubious morals as to how to use a tragedy for political ends. But
we all have our own 9/11 now. You always say like that is my 9/11. My 9/11 was on Friday. That was my 9/11.
All right, Stefan.
Did Israel do that as well? Nathan woke up on Saturday and was like Netanyahu.
Yeah, you did it again.
There's a tenuous connection to Belgium for Nathan's thing, but
was the ambassador there? Oh,
he gave me the salvia.
Was it him? It was a political act.
It was chemical warfare.
So for anybody who doesn't know, for anyone who doesn't know, which would be everybody, there is a guy on the comedy scene who we lovingly call the Belgian ambassador because he's a character comic and he's a fucking Fruit Loop in the best way.
He listens.
He's fantastic. I loved his jokes. Like one of the first jokes I ever heard was from him he was talking about the king having prostate cancer, and he said, "I always knew he didn't have the arse for the job." It's just but I loved him from then.
Yeah, that was good.
Other people had their doubts, not me. I loved it.
I always rate him. I think he's great.
Even after Friday.
Yeah, fuck him. Fuck you.
Anyway, right, it's nearly 2 hours we've been recording and we still haven't got to the horrible stuff. I'm just hearing good things so far.
Okay, so in June 1994, Hogan signed with WWF's only rival company in the post-territory era of World Championship Wrestling, aka WCW. Not entirely surprisingly, Hogan won the WCW title in his first match at Bash at the Beach in July 1994 from Ric Flair. As this was around the time of the steroid trial, Jesse the Body Ventura, as the color commentator, was noticeably absent in the main event for reasons that will become obvious later. Hogan was not restricted from being able to bring his trademark yellow and red attire and Hulkamania aesthetic across, therefore continued to basically do the same thing, notwithstanding the fact he was now 40 years old and playing the same character that Vince McMahon Jr. had made his top star 10 years previously. By which I mean he was stale, but he was at least in a new environment. So this title run lasted for 15 months until he dropped the title to Paul the Big Show White, then wrestling as the Giant in a special match where the belt can be won via DQ. And Hogan was disqualified due to his manager Jimmy Hart twatting the referee with the title belt, then twatting Hogan himself to join the bad guy stable, thus keeping Hogan strong, having not legitimately lost the title. And that was then kept away from the title picture and reteamed with Savage, who had joined WCW, and the two of them reformed the Mega Powers by taking down everyone trying to end Hulkamania in an on-to Doomsday Cage special match, which the Mega Powers obviously won. Although strangely, Savage was allowed to get the winning fall. More on that later. Now, during this period, and this is where the homework comes in, we had another side project of Hogan's, which is that he released an album with it was Hulk Hogan and the Wrestling Boot Band, comprising of him, his wife, Jimmy Hart, and some guy called JJ Maguire, and the album was called Hulk Rules, which came out in July 1995. A summary of the entire album from whatsculture.com describes it thus. Hulk Rules is probably the perfect representation of Hogan's career in music form. In true egomaniacal style, every track on Hulk Rules is about the Hulkster, and almost all the lyrics talk about how awesome he is. Writing that album must have been very difficult for him. As you would expect, Hulk Rules was universally mauled to death by the critics, but in true Hogan style, it got up-pointed at the naysayers, ripped the negative reviews from itself like a pre-cut yellow t-shirt, and stormed to number 12 in the Billboard Kid Albums chart. So, Hulk Rules in its entirety is available on Spotify, and the homework I asked my co-host to do was specifically to listen to track number 9, Hulkster in Heaven. Who would like to best describe Hulkster in Heaven? Chris?
I hoped it was about a woman he loved, only to find out it was about a dying child.
Yes?
And it was weird. Did he sing? Was he singing?
That's him singing.
Are we sure?
Oh, yes.
Are we sure?
Oh, yeah.
Because it didn't really sound... yeah, and it's you said he was wrestling at Wembley, but one of the things I saw on Genius.com when I looked at the lyrics was like a big note saying he wasn't there at that time. So I was just like,
yeah, I can
okay.
can elaborate.
Chris, are you have you done any? Yeah, before you do, I just want to ask: are you aware that it is a specific child that he's talking about?
No, it's not Macaulay Culkin.
Okay,
No.
Go ahead, Ian.
Okay, now it has been so yes, the song is ultimately about a young Hulkamaniac who has died, and Hulk singing about how sad he is that the young Hulkamaniac has died, but there'll be one less seat at Wembley when he goes there to wrestle. So again, the genius thing would probably be sidebar, Hogan didn't wrestle in Wembley in his career. Whether or not that's true, I've not actually looked up. Doesn't really matter, apart from the fact that it implies that the Hulkamaniac in question is British. Now, it might not have been... There are disputed accounts about this, but the Hulkamaniac that apparently the song is dedicated to is James/Jamie Bolger.
Jesus!
Now, for those of you who don't know,
No.
James Bolger was very famously a near 3-year-old boy who was brutally murdered by two 10-year-old boys who abducted him from his mother as she was paying for some groceries, led him away, and I was not aware until I actually looked up Bolger's Wikipedia article exactly what had happened to him. It made me feel...
It's not suitable for life.
It's absolutely
yeah.
sickening. And the reason it keeps getting brought up in the news is with the UK's attitude as to exactly how should Crime and Punishment fit the two 10-year-olds who were responsible for his murder. Now, putting that back into Hulkster in Heaven, lyrics, I read it in the papers, I saw it on TV, I guess there'll be one empty seat when I wrestle at Wembley. I used to tear my shirts, but now you've torn my heart. I knew you were a Hulkamaniac right from the very start.
Now, this reminds me of when The Rock put that tweet out when the Queen died. And he said, like, rest in peace, Queen Elizabeth II. You would have loved Black Adam that is in
Yes.
cinemas now.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Yeah, I mean, the lyrics go on to say, you were my friend, nearly 3-year-old James Bulger. I'll see you again. When the Hulkster comes to heaven, well, that's not happening, we'll tag up
No.
again. The world's just lost another Hulkamaniac. I wish Hulk's love could bring you back again. It goes on, but yeah, if you do associate the song with James Bulger, it's not 100% definitely about him, but there has been attribution. And so the song comes out in 95, Bulger was murdered in 93. So it is possible that it reached the Hulk's conscious somehow. But yeah, so by all means, go listen to Hulk Rules on Spotify. And there's other songs like I Want to Be a Hulkamaniac, Hulkster's in the House, Hulkster's Back, Hulk's the One, Hulk Rules, Beach Patrol. Lots of various deep tracks out there.
Also, it's worth putting out there that he also does a cover of Do You Want to Be in My Gang, or Leader of the Gang, whatever it's called, by prolific paedophile
Jesus.
Gary Glitter.
Not in this album, but as a separate...
Not in this album. That's a B-side. It wasn't good enough to make the album. It got moved away for absolute ditties like Beach Patrol.
Yes. Chris, you look somewhat devastated.
Look, I'm sorry. I mean, I don't like dead air, but like,
No.
what the fuck? That was like, I know. It happened in, I think, like 1991, 1993, something like that.
93.
93, yeah. And it was horrific, and it's still very much in the public consciousness. So just making it all about you is just fucking despicable.
Yeah.
Textbook
God.
narcissism, like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good lord.
So
Okay.
let's skip happily on to the NWO, because after some time away to film Santa with Muscles, Hogan returned at the Bash at the Beach pay-per-view in 1996 during the main event, in which the outsiders of Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, who had newly departed WWF and were threatening to bring down the WCW from within, were part of a 6-person tag team match against WCW royalty Sting, Lex Luger, and Randy Savage. But their partner was missing. So Hogan comes down, and when you think he's going to back the other WCW guys, he turns heel for the first time in 15 years, since before he was working for Vince McMahon Sr., and the New World Order was born, which was a heel stable which stacked the deck against the good guys of WCW with the backing of WCW Executive Vice President Eric Bischoff. They had a biased NWO referee and an ever-growing membership that would constantly interfere in matches, including Randy Savage. Hogan won the WC title at the very next pay-per-view and was now the man to beat, having dyed his facial hair black, apart from keeping his handlebar moustache blonde. He swapped out the yellow and red colour scheme for black and white, and rechristened himself Hollywood Hulk Hogan, to more easily demarcate him as being a heel. And try as they might, the combined forces of WCW could not overcome the NWO, with any losses Hogan saw being DQ, largely from interference, or matches where the title wasn't on the line. Sting, who had felt rejected by the WCW fans for thinking himself capable of joining the NWO, withdrew from active wrestling, became the Crow of comics fiction and movie fame. And for those of you who don't know, there's just one Crow movie. Just one.
Yeah, there is just the
Yeah,
one. Yeah.
Just one. And
Yeah,
he would
if no
watch...
one died during the making of it, it doesn't exist.
all right. We've got more darkness to come. Let's at least keep it on topic. He'd watch from the stadium rafters, sometimes interfering by way of a rappelling line, which would see him kind of float down from the ceiling to the ring to involve himself in lopsided beatdowns that the NWO would regularly give WCW talent. This would go on for 15 months, with Hogan holding the title throughout, apart from a 4-day period where Lex Luger beat him for the title, only to lose it straight back again to Hogan. So the clear collision course was Sting versus Hogan for the title, which would ultimately happen at Starrcade 1997 in November. Whilst Sting did walk out the champion, the circumstances were highly controversial. More on that later. The invincibility of the NWO was dispelled after 16 months with the title loss. The focus shifted to how unwieldy the group had become, with Nash and Savage increasingly noticing art imitating life, with Hogan looking out for himself rather than the stable. This manifested in Savage, who'd ended Sting's title reign at Spring Stampede 1998, losing it the following night on Monday Night Nitro to Hogan, after various wrestlers interfered, such as Bret Hart and the Disciple for Hogan and Nash for Savage. The schism formally occurred in May 1998, with Nash, Savage and others forming NWO Wolfpack, which is like the face version of NWO, and Hogan being in charge of NWO Hollywood, with Hall, the Disciple, Bischoff and others, which meant there were 2 factions of the NWO fighting each other, as well as the WCW wrestlers, such as an up-and-coming rookie wrestler named Goldberg, to whom Hogan would lose the title to July 1998 as part of Goldberg's undefeated streak. And this was done on television as a means of popping a rating, because at this point the WWF, which had been in the doldrums rating-wise and creatively, had recently crowned Stone Cold Steve Austin, not Steve Cold Stone Austin, as its top guy, and had just at the previous month the infamous Mankind Undertaker Hell in a Cell match.
Legendary.
So the rest of 1998.
Yeah, this is the big fall, right?
That's the one with
16
the big
feet
fall. Absolutely.
through a table. Yeah.
Yeah. So the rest of 1998 saw Hogan use his star power to pull in celebrity matches, not unlike the very first WrestleMania, where he had tagged with Mr. T. And these matches included the likes of Jay Leno, who I mentioned earlier, and Dennis Rodman. So WCW was starting to go down the pan, and in January 1999, the NWO reformed with the infamous finger poke of doom, seeing WCW champion Nash lie down for Hogan to make him champion once again. This angle, complete with Mick Foley, aka Mankind, winning the WWF title on Monday Night Raw the same night, saw WWF overtake WCW for the first time in 83 weeks in the ratings and would never look back. Hogan, now 45 and now creatively played out, spent the first 4 months of 1999 feuding with Ric Flair, to whom he dropped the title, had a 3-month break, then immediately come back and defeat, of course, Randy Savage for the title, before feuding with and dropping the title belt to Sting. The year 2000 saw him try, but largely fail, to put over new talent. And when it came time for him to return himself back to the main event picture, he utilised his creative control clause in his contract to win the title, and with none of the storyline crutches that would actually help the story. As such, Hogan agreed to a rematch down the line to the wrestler he was beating, Jeff Jarrett, who would simply lie down for Hogan to pin after being told to promo against the writer, Vince Russo, and leave. Russo had other ideas, as he would come out later in the show as the title match was not on last, and lambasted Hogan, calling him a politica and a bold son of a bitch. Hogan took offence to being called bold and would never return to WCW for the remainder of its existence through to 2001, and sued for defamation of character, which was ultimately dismissed in 2002.
And can I just ask, because we went to the 2000s, and I know that there is a very controversial WCW World Heavyweight Champion in the early 2000s, which is WCW Champion David Arquette.
Yes.
Yeah, he was champion for what, 4 days? Where was Hulk Hogan during this? Was he involved?
This was the same year. I'm trying to recall exactly which part.
It was like January, I think it happened. It was early 2000.
In that case, this would be around the time Hogan was trying to put over Billy Kidman.
Right, okay. So he was other occupied, and then David Arquette, the actor, got the title.
David Arquette was largely working a program with Diamond Dallas Page with regards to that, because it was all tied in to the WCW related movie starring David Arquette, Ready to Rumble, which I've never actually put myself through, but there are a lot of WCW stars featured in that, because it does involve basically the main characters being big fans of wrestling and a fictional wrestler who they're trying to rehab so that he can win back the title and things of that nature. But that was very much the year 2000 style of booking.
Yeah, it was a load of shit, load of nonsense. Sorry, carry on. I thought that needed to be included.
That's fine. Okay, so having exited WCW over the summer of 2000, Hogan took his time away to get double knee surgery, and having a single match at Jimmy Hart's XWF in November 2001 before returning to WWF alongside Hall and Nash as the original NWO iteration. Now 48, plans of keeping the NWO together were dismantled pretty quickly when Hogan faced The Rock in a dream match at WrestleMania 18. Any memories of that?
WrestleMania 18. So yeah, I think so. I think I was probably around about 11 or 12, around about this time.
But you don't remember being particularly impressed by it is The Rock and it is Hogan in a match?
I never really liked Hulk Hogan. I always found him really boring. Yeah.
It was a different style of wrestling at the time, so that's absolutely fair.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. Yeah, I was more, when I was younger, definitely I was way more interested in the very weird and wonderful people. I loved Gangrel, and I liked Gold Dust, and they were all jobbers, but they were weird. And then later on, people like the Boogeyman and things like that. For me,
it was like I loved the freaky wrestlers like Kane and The Undertaker, Rey Mysterio. Apart from, unless you were Goldberg because of the spear, I basically wasn't interested if I could see your full face.
Yeah.
And actually, everyone used to say at school, because I was a big fat kid, that I was like Rafiki.
Rikishi.
Rikishi. Rafiki is the monkey from The Lion King.
Rikishi? That's the one I meant. Well, I was like Rafiki as well. I was always throwing stuff at people.
Yeah. Asante Sound, a squash banana.
The idea of bringing the NW back long term didn't really work out, because during his match with The Rock at WrestleMania, the crowd reacted very kindly to Hogan, who was technically the heel in the match. And so the two wrestlers kind of improvised with The Rock leaning in to play the heel a bit more. The Rock would win, as planned, but the reaction saw Hogan reject Hall and Nash, leave the NWO behind, and the stable would not survive this, as Hall would leave the company in May and Nash would tear his quads in July, and therefore Hogan returned to the red and yellow Hulkamania aesthetic. This hilariously led to Triple H dropping the title he just won at the main event at WrestleMania to Hogan the following month. Then Hogan doing the honours for The Undertaker by passing the title on to him, and then working with newer wrestlers, such as winning the tag titles with a boyhood fan of his in Edge. He tapped out to Kurt Angle in a frankly unheard of clean submission loss, and then he was decimated by the hot new thing Brock Lesnar in August 2002. But as Hogan could only be generous for so long and only agreed to a rematch with Lesnar if he got his win back, Hogan was not used for the rest of 2002. 2003, Hogan returned to have a further match with the very much now heel version of The Rock in February, and then competed against Vince McMahon in a street fight at WrestleMania 19, in a match billed 20 years in the making, as Vince and Hogan had plenty of material to use against each other as to why they might dislike each other. Hogan and Vince continued to feud after WrestleMania with the not entirely good gimmick Mr. America, but after being creatively dissatisfied and complaining about his WrestleMania payout, Hogan left WWE again in June 2003. He was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame at WrestleMania 21 in 2005, where he showed up to... he also showed up to save the mentally challenged wrestler Eugene. Again, my script said handicapped.
Eugene. Fucking hell.
And so Hogan was saving him from Muhammad Hassan, the wrestling terrorist, and his manager Davari. They had wrestling terrorists back in the day. But
Wrestling terrorists.
but then they got rid of him after the actual 7/7 attacks on London. So, yeah. So, it's a shame for the guy who just got given the gimmick of being a terrorist. But there we go. Hogan would then take on these two men with Shawn Michaels as his tag partner. And after a couple of tag matches together, Michaels turned heel and attacked Hogan, leading to a match at SummerSlam 2005. Due to both men being well-known politicers as to who would win and how, Hogan ultimately got his way with getting the win and making sure that this best-of-3 series was, oh no, I'll just win. However, Michaels, as a way of getting some payback, sabotaged the match by overselling every piece of offence that Hogan gave him. You should really look up that match because it's really quite funny if you know what's going on. It's a case like he'd be given like a big boot and then he'd throw himself backwards over the ropes out of the ring and things like that. So, because
he was always good at overselling Shawn Michaels.
He was, and Michaels is one of the few people who won't get fired unless he does something really seriously wrong. So he knew he could get away with it. Hogan left after that, citing disrespect, but he had got the publicity for the project he was there to promote. And now we move into the world of reality television. Because, you see, Hogan was the star of an Osbourne's rip-off called Hogan Knows Best.
Hogan Knows Best. I thought it was called Hogan's House. Hogan Knows Best.
That's a completely different show.
All right, okay.
This
Whose house?
This
Hogan's house.
premieres on the 10th of July 2025, therefore 5 or 6 weeks before the SummerSlam match. The show revolves around Hulk, his wife Linda, his aspiring pop star daughter Brooke, and his son Nick. And as much as I enjoyed doing this podcast, there was no way in hell I was looking for an episode of that just for the purposes of giving you a feeling. I've listened to Hulk Rules.
Reality TV is where I draw the line.
Absolutely.
Fuck that.
Hogan Knows Best was cancelled after 4 seasons in 2007 due to the shoot, that is to say, real life, divorce of Hogan and Linda, due to Hulk's affair with a 33-year-old woman called Christiana Plantain. Plant, a friend of Brooks during her music career launch. So this woman was 33. Hulk would be around 54 at this point. Now, no bad deed goes unpunished, and Hogan was absolutely rinsed by his by the divorce lawyer of his wife. What culture say? Linda took almost 70% of his assets in the divorce settlement, including 40% ownership of all of his companies. She got $7.44 million in cash, as well as $3 million in property. Having blown a lot of his wealth during his heyday, Hogan was left in a financial mess. He had to quickly sell his Florida home by slashing the asking price and moving into rented accommodation. He later admitted that he contemplated suicide due to how bad the situation got. But Linda wasn't through yet. She released an autobiography where she claimed that she had put up with violence from the Hulkster, as well as him mentally abusing her during the marriage. She said Hogan was addicted to drugs and that he would kill her. That being said, Hulk Hogan passed away last year, and this very woman was at his funeral, whereas daughter Brooke was not. So Hogan, after the divorce, was down to his last $10 million. Your heart bleeds.
Damn, you hate to see it. You really do.
So,
oh no,
in need of some cash, he turns to 3 letters, TNA.
Tits and ass.
Well, TNA, an acronym for total non-stop action, but also a play on T and A, both an acronym for tits and ass, and also a WWF tag team from 2000, was managed by glamour model turned wrestler Trish Stratus.
Oh, Trish Stratus, yes.
We love you, Trish.
Yeah. Hall of Famer.
Oh, yeah.
Having been
Hall of Famer Trish Stratus. Eat your heart out, Angela White.
Eat out Trish Stratus, Angela White.
Damn right. Let's get that.
That's a wrestling film
podcast, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not even going to bother with the history of TNA. No. So TNA started as a series of weekly pay-per-views in lieu of having an immediate TV deal, which they finally got in May 2004. What set it apart from WWE is it had a 6-sided ring.
Mm-hmm.
And also had some wrestlers who'd never previously worked for WWE in a major capacity. They might have done the odd dark match that wasn't televised, but we're talking about names like AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, and Samoa Joe. And it had a much more respected women's wrestling scene known as the Knockouts division. It soon became an attractive alternative for misused or fired WWE talent, which saw the likes of Kurt Angle, Christian Cage / Christian of Edge and Christian, the Dudley Boys, Booker T, Kevin Nash and Scott Steiner join. It also saw the return of Sting, who had always resisted joining WWE, and whilst in 2009 TNA was nowhere near the level of popularity or success that WWE was, notwithstanding 2009 WWE being really fucking awful, it had established itself as a true alternative. 2009 would roughly be when that John Cena Rock series was going on.
Right. Okay.
Actually,
Yeah.
maybe that
Yeah.
was a bit later, but it certainly would have been around the time of the Donald Trump Vince McMahon hair versus hair. Certainly. So, enter Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff at the end of 2009, brought in by TNA president and stupid heiress Dixie Carter. Changes were immediately made to please the newcomers, with the most notable one being the replacement of the six-sided ring for the traditional four-sided ring, as Hogan reportedly refused to wrestle in a playpen. Bischoff insisted that, as he'd done with Nitro in WCW, that Impact, the TV show, air on a Monday night in direct competition with WWE Raw. Finally, the name TNA didn't work for Hogan, brother. Thus, the company would later be renamed Impact Wrestling in May 2011, around 18 months after Hogan and Bischoff had joined. Whereas Hogan was more a creative force than an active wrestler, and uncharacteristically, he lost his one pay-per-view match that he had at a pay-per-view called Bound for Glory against Sting. The Hogan-Bischoff era is remembered as one where all of TNA/Impact's promise was thrown away for the wacky ideas of two has-beens. Such ideas I will list without context: AJ Styles' fake baby mama, Claire Lynch, Abyss and the Magic Ring, Joker Sting, Samoa Joe kidnapped by ninjas and returned without any mention of it ever again, authority figure Brooke Hogan, knockout champion, therefore female wrestler, Madison Rayne has a massive crush on referee Earl Hebner, and NWO 2.0 Immortal, aka the stable that included basically everybody. Hogan left...
Yes, sorry, just to interject again, TNA was very silly. I've just looked something up because I remember you've just mentioned Scott Steiner was in there. And Scott Steiner has one of the greatest promos ever. I don't know if you ever heard this, Chris, but this is fucking brilliant. I'm going to read it out to you.
Okay.
Steiner Mats. So, Scott Steiner, he says this. You know, they say that all men are created equal, but you look at me and you look at Samoa Joe and you can see that statement is not true. See, normally, if you go one-on-one with another wrestler, you've got 50-50 chance of winning, but I'm a genetic freak and I'm not normal. So you got a 25% chance at best at beat me. And then you add Kurt Angle to the mix, your chances of winning drastically go down. See, the three-way at Sacrifice, you've got a 33 and a third chance of winning, but I got a 63 and two-third chance of winning because Kurt Angle knows he can't beat me and he's not even going to try. So Samoa Joe, you take your 33 and one-third chance minus 25% chance and you've got an 8 and a third chance of winning at Sacrifice. But then you take my 75% chance of winning if we was to go one-on-one and then add 63 and two-third percent. I got 141 and two-thirds chance of winning at Sacrifice. See, Joe, the numbers don't lie and they spell disaster for you at Sacrifice. It's fucking so funny.
Oh my god, that rings a distant bell. I think that's probably been used in a meme somewhere.
Oh
yeah,
yes,
I think it has.
It's probably the
absurd.
most famous promo in all of TNA.
It's so funny, man.
It's amazing.
Good lord.
So so this is we're pretty much at the end of TNA. Hogan left TNA in October 2013, with his final moment being leaving in triumph, with Dixie Carter holding onto his leg, crying as he dragged her behind him. Dignity. Always dignity. So, this marks the end of Hogan as a wrestler, but there are aspects about his active career as a wrestler to look back upon until we speed up to his merciful death. Now, creative control. Quite famously, he refused to do the right job at the right time for certain points. I'm going to largely mention individual ones for certain wrestlers, but a special mention to Randy Savage, who Hogan would never let beat him, despite the fact that they were the Mega Powers together, despite the fact that they were in teams and stables together, Hogan could never bring it within him to let Savage get a clean victory over him. And this did rankle Savage quite a lot. So around the time he was playing Bonesaw in Spider-Man, see earlier, again, going back to music, and I've not actually looked for this on Spotify, but if it's there, again, I'll add the track to our playlist. Randy Savage brought out a rap album, and he had a diss track for Hulk Hogan called Be a Man. And it is, the lyrics of it are quite something. So look for Be a Man by Randy Savage. But
Not the Mulan.
no, not the one that Donny Osmond sang. And Savage also does blame Hogan for the breakup of his marriage, because a lot of the inspiration of the Mega Powers did seemingly play out in real life between him and Miss Elizabeth. That being said, Randy Savage was not a good husband. He was very controlling and would lock her up backstage to stop her socializing with any of the rest of the locker room. Yeah, so they were always going to get divorced, but he does hold Hogan partially attributable for that. He refused to work with Ric Flair at WrestleMania 8 when Ric Flair was the WWF champion. So Flair instead worked with Savage in what was a very good title match. It didn't headline WrestleMania 8. That was instead Hogan, because he is Hulk Hogan, taking on Sid Vicious, or Sid Justice as he was known at the time. I don't know if you remember Sid, but he's also kind of notorious in the wrestling scene for two reasons. He's got the I'm twice the man you are, and I've got half the brains. And then he had a very nasty leg break doing a move off of a middle rope, on live television.
Right.
So I wouldn't.
Is he not the guy from the Sex Pistols?
There is a Sid Vicious in the Sex Pistols, but different guy.
He always went through with the name Sid. So sometimes he was Psycho Sid, sometimes he was Sid Justice, sometimes he was just Sid, and he was Sid Vicious for a time as well. But yes, Sid Vicious.
I'm taking a pseudonym from Sid Vicious. It works out well. Much like there is another wrestler, a female wrestler, who calls herself Bonnie Rotten, who works with other wrestler Angela White sometimes.
Well, I'm gonna bring up a wrestler that we'll have all watched wrestle when we were teenagers, Liz Vicious.
My God.
I knew you'd get it. Yeah, I thought you'd.
That's a fucking blast from the past.
That is a few blasts from.
Jesus.
I'm not registering that one.
A fair few blasts from the past.
Okay.
We'll send you some videos to look at afterwards.
Okay, lovely. About WrestleMania 9, Bret Hart, who was the kind of company man after Hogan had taken some time off to get all the steroids out of his system, he lost to the quote-unquote sumo wrestler Yokozuna in the main event. So it was like a good guy losing to a villain in the main event at WrestleMania. But then Hogan shows up to support his friend and then coax Yokozuna into giving him a title match there and then, which he goes on to win in 10 seconds, which makes both Bret Hart and Yokozuna look incredibly weak. But the idea was that Hogan would drop the title to Bret Hart at King of the Ring, and he doesn't. He drops it back to Yokozuna instead and lets his contract with the WWF lapse. So Bret Hart has always had a bit of a grudge, which is unlike Bret Hart, if you know anything about him. He's a very forgiving
Bret the shit man fart.
Oh, now you've made the list. I referred to Starrcade 97, where the culmination of the NWO storyline would be Sting beating Hogan to put an end to the heel dominance. So what was meant to happen, what had been scripted, was that the referee would give a fast count, so they'd count 1, 2, 3 really quickly, and then Bret Hart, who had just been screwed infamously at Survivor Series in WWF and had now joined WCW, would come out, say, no, this isn't going to happen again, gets the match restarted, and then Sting wins properly with a pinfall. Now, that didn't work for Hogan on the day, despite the fact that 15 months of booking had been leading to that moment. So what happened was the quote-unquote fast count turned out to be a regular count, so it looked like Hogan had just beaten Sting completely legitimately, and therefore by restarting the match, it made the good guys look like wimps and crybabies and such like, and basically the next few months were just trying to like rectify that decision. So again, that was the kind of just WCW losing its way. I mentioned obviously the Jarrett match at Bash at the Beach, which caused him to just take the title away because basically he wanted the title, which led to the right of Vince Russo shooting on him and calling him bold. 2002, the reason why it was The Rock who faced him at WrestleMania 18, is because the dream match would have been Hogan versus Austin. But for whatever reason, they could never quite come to terms with how that was going to play out. So The Rock has the memorable match with Hogan, and Austin takes on Scott Hall. And Scott Hall was a perfectly good wrestler in and of himself. He was known as Razor Ramon for most of his WWF stint, but it's just not the same. And Austin was very much on the outs with WWF that year as well. And then I've mentioned, again, I do recommend you look up the Shawn Michaels match at SummerSlam 2005, because him overselling fucking everything and Hogan looking angry about it is really quite funny. Now, we have some controversies. Chris, are you up to these controversies?
I my foundations were shaken with Hulkster in Heaven, but I will push through for the listeners.
I'll say this, the first couple aren't quite that dark. I think at most they're just either amusing or showing him to be a bit petty. They do get a bit more bleak towards the end. So the first one is around the time of WrestleMania 1. Hogan and Mr. T were on a talk show called Hot Properties, hosted by a comedian and actor called Richard Belzer, to promote WrestleMania. And Belzer asked Hogan to demonstrate a move on him. So Hogan puts Belzer in a front chinlock, only for Belzer to legitimately pass out. And as Hogan released his grasp, Belzer's head hit the studio floor and required 9 stitches to close up.
God's sake, he botched that one.
Hilariously, Hogan stayed in character following the commercial break, saying he didn't realise that apparently Belzer didn't do any physical training at all, and warned the audience, if you're not a professional athlete or a professional wrestler, don't try to copy what you see the athletes or professional wrestlers do on TV. So,
Good save.
yeah. Belzer sued Hogan for $5 million for assault 5 years later, which settled before it could go to court, and apparently he got £400,000 out of it, which Belzer used to buy a house in the French Riviera between Nice and Monaco, and christened it Shea Hogan. So he saw the funny side of it. The court case is also notable because Belzer's lawyers, who had agreed a retainer of accepting a third of the damages as their fee, argued that they deserved 50% of the damages due to how much work they put into the case. So the case actually continued between Belzer and his own lawyers as opposed to Belzer and Hogan, but the court sided with Belzer based upon the fact that the retainer agreement was legally binding. God, I hate lawyers. Anyway,
Bastards.
terrible people.
I hate fucking forklift drivers.
Oh,
What's wrong with us? Apart from stealing your bitches.
That's why.
Right, Chris. I don't think you're going to like this one, although it isn't dark, but it'll infuriate slightly. Union busting Ventura by tattling to Vince.
That fucker.
In the run-up to WrestleMania 2 in 1986, Jesse the Body Ventura reckoned that it would work if King Kong Bundy, Hulk's main event opponent, agreed that the wrestlers employed by WWF formed a union so that they could negotiate better kind of employment rights. And others that he spoke to in the locker room reckoned that Hogan would need to be on board for it to work. So Hogan found out about it one way or the other and told Vince, basically. And Vince then called a meeting with the locker room, stamped all over it with threats of blacklisting them. And this was around the time that all of the territories was being swallowed up by him. Ventura, who was 34 and with blood clots in his lungs, which might inform why he thought a wrestling union would be a good idea, retired around this time as an in-ring wrestler, but he was also working on projects such as acting in Predator. And Hogan then later confirmed, years later, so this was in 1986, Hogan confirmed that indeed the union talk reaching Vince and him going to Vince happened when he was giving evidence in the 1994 steroid trial. Although his version of events was it was both him and King Kong Bundy together going to Vince, and that Vince said he already knew. Now, Ventura, who was unaware of the fact that Hogan had gone to Vince and had been good friends with Hogan, abruptly ended the friendship upon hearing this testimony, which explains why, when Ventura was on commentary for Hogan's title win in his very first match in WCW, he had made himself scarce. To this day, there is no wrestling union with WWE, or in fact, in general. WWE refer to their contracted talent as independent contractors as opposed to employees, to avoid various employment protocols it would otherwise have to observe.
How often that... I hate that loophole exists. Uber. Fucking WWE. Who else? Who else does this shit? It's pretty much everyone who's like a gig economy, right?
Only fans.
Yeah, okay, possibly.
Actually, I'm not going to throw out names.
Maybe they make more money out of
that. I might get in trouble if I just throw out names without actually knowing. We'll move on to Nick Hogan's DUI. On the evening of August 26, 2007, just 16 days after his fourth speeding ticket in 11 months, the 17-year-old Nick Hogan was driving his Toyota Supra and was involved in a serious crash in Clearwater, Florida. Nick Hogan and his passenger, the 22-year-old John Graziano, were flown to a medical centre. Hogan was released from care and was said to be okay. Graziano, a US Marine and a member of Hogan's pit crew, was not wearing a seatbelt. The eye and brain injuries he sustained were expected to leave him in a nursing home for the rest of his life. In September 2009, so this is 2 years and a month after the crash, Graziano returned to his home where he continued to receive full-time care. Hogan was charged with several violations for the crash, including a felony. He turned himself into the authorities and was released on £10,000 bail. He was charged with reckless driving involving serious bodily injury, use of a motor vehicle in a commission of a felony, a person under the age of 21 operating a vehicle with a blood alcohol level of 0.02%. 2 hours after the wreck, Hogan's blood alcohol content was 0.055%, so over twice that. The Hogan family issued a statement on how they were saddened that criminal charges had been filed against Nick and how John Graziano was not wearing his seatbelt, but Nick was. Because, and now this is my own analysis, the Hogan family are scum.
Yeah.
So Hogan entered a no contest plea and was sentenced to 8 months in jail. The sentence also called for Hogan to serve 5 years of probation, 500 community service hours, and his driver's license was suspended for 3 years. Nick Hogan, or Belair, started complaining about the accommodations to his parents in telephone conversations, saying, "I have to get out of here. I can't deal with this for 8 months. The cell is half the size of his bathroom at home." Now, so far, it's just about Hogan's son being a brat and a shit and a terrible human being who has brain damage and ruined a man's life. In Hulk's involvement, in one conversation, because a lot of the conversations that Nick had with his parents were recorded and then released because, Florida. So, in one conversation, Terry says God was responsible for what happened to Graziano as punishment for his own behaviour. Nick responds to his father saying Graziano was a negative person. Nick then tells his father to develop a reality series to begin with his release from incarceration. Hogan repeatedly uses the term nagger, not the actual word, during one phone call, and in another he shares his thoughts on God and reincarnation. He is heard telling his son, "You know that God gave you this vibe and this energy, that you and I are going to live forever, bro. I just hope we don't come back as a couple. I don't want to say it. Blizzak Gizeyes, you know what I'm saying?" His son simply replied, "Brutal." So, yes. So, basically, this is the start of Hogan saying some unfortunate things about black people. We have 2 more scandals, and then we'll go on to the sweet release of death. So, the sex tape and Gorka.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God, not a Hulk Hogan sex.
Yeah, it was.
What Culture puts it like this. In 2012, the Hulkster was seen hulking all over Heather Clem, the now former wife of Hogan's best friend, Bubba the Love Sponge, who was a DJ in Florida. What turned into a $100 million lawsuit, Hogan claimed he had no idea he was being recorded and was disgusted that his best friend would leak the tape. In the grainy video, Bubba the Love Sponge is heard saying, "You guys do your thing. I'll be in the office if you need me." Once he leaves, Hogan and Clem start their own TLC match. What follows is some very dull sex action where Hogan's untamed is the highlight in more ways than one. We are also treated to Hogan talking about his son Nick while he's doing the dirty, and his phone rings at one point, and the ringtone is Brooke Hogan's smash hit "About Us." According to Bubba, Hogan was fully aware that the session was being recorded and that he had cameras in his bedroom under the advice of his attorney due to child custody issues. Who'd have thought?
Oh, God.
What was Bubba doing while Hogan was laying the smackdown on his wife in the next room? Looking up also parts on the internet, apparently. Hogan, clearly annoyed at the release of the sex tape, filed lawsuits against Bubba and Heather for invasion of privacy and claiming that Hogan was involved in the leaking of the tape. Hogan was also suing Gorka Media for publishing the tape on their website. So,
what the hell? Why? So,
yeah,
he's not. He doesn't even have the good grace to have a wank while his wife gets blarted.
No, he's got things to do.
Just goes next door, looks up car parts.
He can watch it later. You know,
he needs to replace the gasket because his missus's gasket's just getting blown.
Yep. So, your best friend secretly films you having sex with his wife in cameras planted around the bedroom for child custody issues. Fine. We've all been there. The Gorka lawsuit is what makes this really interesting and significant, not to mention harrowing and funny. Whereas the lawsuit against Mr. and Mrs. Love Sponge was settled within a matter of weeks, Hogan filed a $100 million lawsuit against Gorka, which was an online blog site that specialised in celebrity and media industry gossip, and had posted excerpts of the leaked tape in 2012. Hogan's lawsuit against Gorka was financially supported by PayPal founder and Bond villain Peter Thiel, who had beef as Gorka had outed him as gay in 2007. During cross-examination, Belair stated under oath that he and his character were distinct people, by way of example, by stating that Hulk Hogan does have a 10-inch penis and Terry Belair doesn't. He said that under oath in a court of law.
Peter Thiel, or Peter Thiel as in Palantir?
Yes.
And PayPal,
yes.
And Facebook,
yes.
As in one of the most evil people in the fucking world.
Yes.
Gee, Gorka?
Yes.
This honestly just proves that, like, to billionaires, like it's just people are just a game. It's just fun.
Yeah.
This guy
Life's
is
just a game.
like,
and because it's America, the jury ruled in Hogan's favour, awarding him $115 million in damages, $15 million more than he'd asked for, which ultimately bankrupted Gorka and saw them go under. Hogan agreed to accept.
Peter Thiel didn't have that much money.
$31 million from Gorka as a final settlement.
Good lord.
You remember Gorka, Chris?
I do, like, vaguely, yeah. It was a while ago, but like it seems like in the last, 10, 15 years, there's been like a lot of media outlets that have went under, which quite handily pays the way to have just a few massive monopoly medias, which are all seem to be owned by right-wing billionaires.
Trump allies,
funny that.
Yeah, I don't know anything about Gorka. I've never heard of Gorka. I thought a Gorka was something that famous wrestler Angela White does when she tackles a shaft.
Well,
Gork.
It's pronounced shake, and he's dead.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, I've got one more controversy, and this one's titled "The Bad Racism."
Good, as long as it's not coming after the good racism.
Yeah. The fallout from the Hogan sex tape was nevertheless problematic for Hogan, notwithstanding the amount of money he'd received. The embarrassment aside, it turns out Hogan said a wee bit more than simply talking about his son whilst boning his friend's wife. Radar Online and the National Enquirer documented the kind of stuff that he was saying in July 2015, starting with, "I guess we're all a little racist." Now, as true as that might be, what I'm about to read aloud and censor is arguably more than, quote, a little racist. I'm not going to do an impression, but I will read what I have copied and pasted. "She is making some really bad decisions now," Hulk said. "My daughter Brooke jumped sides on me. I spent $2 to $3 million on her music career. I've done everything like a jackass for her. The one option Brooke had, Brooke's career besides me, is to sell beach records." At that point on tape, the former Hogan Knows Best star bemoaned how a black billionaire guy had offered to fund her music career. "I don't know if Brooke was fucking the black guy's son. I mean, I don't have double standards. I mean, I am a racist to a point. Fucking naggers. But then, when it comes to nice people and shit and whatever, I mean, I'd rather, if she was going to fuck some nagger, I'd rather have her marry an 8-foot-tall nagger worth $100 million, like a basketball player. I guess we're all a little racist. Fucking nagger." In response, Vince McMahon, who himself had said nagger on WWE programming in a segment with John Cena and Booker T,
Yes.
had Hogan cancelled by way of terminating his Legends contract with the company, removing him from the WWE Hall of Fame, scrubbed as many references to him from their website as they could, removed him from their video games, and withdrew his merchandise. Other retailers withdrew his action figures and merchandise as well. Hogan gave an interview on Good Morning America on August the 31st, in which he pleaded forgiveness for his racist comments, attributing these to a racial bias inherited from his neighbourhood while growing up. Hogan said that the term nagger was used liberally among friends in Tampa. Former neighbours disputed this.
You know things are bad when like people in Florida are like, we want nothing to do with this man.
Yeah, people in Florida, honestly.
Florida man is like, I have no association with Hulk Hogan. I just want to make that perfectly clear.
Yeah.
Now watch as I drive my car 107 miles an hour through a 45-mile-an-hour school zone.
Yes. Because bad people look out for one another, Vince McMahon brought Hogan back in from the cold 4 years later in 2018, stating, "I knew he wasn't racist. He said some racist things. He should pay for that," and he did.
Oh, good.
This resulted in Vince reinstating him in the Hall of Fame and arranging a locker room meeting so that Hogan could go in and formally apologise to the roster for his words, deeds and actions, given the number of black wrestlers employed by the company who had expressed...
Do you reckon, like, was this televised, Ian?
No.
Oh, okay, right.
Because
I'm just imagining he says, "I'm really sorry about what I said about you people."
Yeah, exactly. We're getting there.
You know, I know what you guys get like.
Given the number of black wrestlers employed by the company who expressed unhappiness with the original comments when they were released. How did it go down? Several African-American wrestlers, including The New Day, Titus O'Neil, Mark Henry, Shelton Benjamin and JTG, doubted the sincerity of Hogan's apology due to Hogan warning wrestlers to be mindful about being recorded without their knowledge during his apology instead of addressing his comments. So basically,
I'm sorry I got caught.
Exactly.
That
is...
Man, Titus O'Neil. What a funny man.
Interesting.
Yeah.
4 years is enough. Everyone's got a short memory. Come on back in, Hulkamania.
Yeah. The rehabilitation involved Hogan appearing at the pay-per-views in Saudi Arabia as part of WWE's controversial partnership with a rogue journalist-killing state, being a guest host at the following year's WrestleMania, coming back to pay tribute to Mean Gene Okerlund, who passed away in 2019, appearing at WWE Hall of Fame ceremonies, and co-hosting WrestleMania 37 in 2021, hilariously, with black wrestler Titus O'Neil. So,
I bet like backstage Hulk was like, "Look, last time I had to apologise to all you guys, I thought it was terrible they wouldn't let you come out and watch the match and they made you sit in the locker room, but I promise you can sit in the crowd with everyone else this time. Like, you can come out and have a seat, it's fine. It's not an issue." I love that, well, not I don't love it, but the idea that like, he's just so racist he doesn't even know it. Like, he's apologised for the things that everyone saw him being racist, but like behind the scenes, it's just far worse than that. Like, walk past the group of guys he was meant to apologise to because he thought they were the fucking cleaners.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jesus.
So we'll get on to a fun bit of Hulk Hogan's lies before we close up. So, some of Hulk Hogan's tallest tales. He said that both Metallica and the Rolling Stones wanted him as a bassist in the band. This has been disputed by at the very least Lars Sullivan. We don't know if the Rolling Stones know who Hulk Hogan is. Hogan states that Elvis Presley was a Hulkamaniac. Elvis died 6 days before Hogan's very first match when he was the masked Super Destroyer.
Come on, if James Bulger can be a Hulkamaniac, then so can Elvis.
Sure.
Anyone can be a Hulkamaniac.
Yeah, you're conscripted into the fan base.
He says...
You serve at the pleasure of the Hulkamaniac now.
He says that at his peak, he worked 400 days a year. And he doubled down by saying because if there was so much flying between America and Japan that crossing over the international date line made that actually real. That is, of course...
Who's been doing maths with Scott Steiner and Terrence Howard?
Yes. Terrence Howard.
I mean,
That's a deep cut.
that's one of those things where, like, I don't know enough about the maths involved in that I might just have to believe him on that one. That might not be technically a lie. I don't know.
Moving on. He said that he was offered the George Foreman grill, but was out picking up his kids and/or opted for a meatball maker instead. Now, Foreman has heard this, and Foreman is actually willing to believe part of it. But given his propensity to lie, I don't think you get passed up on, a grill product or a product to endorse just by missing a call if you're out picking up your kids.
True.
He said he could potentially have been a pro baseball player on the basis of how good he was at mini league softball as a teen, although there are no records in the softball leagues in Florida around that time for a Terry Bollea. Apparently he was offered the lead role in The Wrestler, the Darren Aronofsky film that won Oscars starring Mickey Rourke. Darren Aronofsky has disputed this. He says that he partied with John Belushi after WrestleMania 2 in 1986. John Belushi died in 1982. And on a similar beat, he said that Andre the Giant passed away 3 days after the WrestleMania 3 slam, tearing all the muscles in his back. Andre the Giant would beat him or take him to a no contest in the WrestleMania 4 tournament to crown a new champion, and didn't die for another couple of years after that. So there we are. Hulk Hogan's a liar.
He's an idiot.
Do you want me to go into his death, or just?
Yeah, we might as well.
It might as well. It'll be a long one. He died.
Politics and death. In 2008, Hogan apparently endorsed Barack Obama for president, but in 2011 recanted his endorsement because apparently Obama used the Real American theme song without his permission during that year's White House Correspondents' Dinner. So Hogan instead endorsed Mitt Romney, running against Obama in 2012. In the run-up to the 2016 presidential election, Hogan said he wanted to be Donald Trump's pick for vice president.
Mm-hmm.
Hogan formally endorsed Trump for president at the 2024 Republican National Convention. He also spoke at the 2024 Trump rally at Madison Square Garden, which I don't know if you remember had the Kill Tony guy refer to Puerto Rico as an island of garbage.
No.
And it was just seen as basically a very right-wing rally. January the 6th, 2025, not the other January 6th, Hogan made his final appearance at a professional wrestling event during the Raw debut on Netflix, where alongside Jimmy Hart he cut a promo advertising his Real American beer. Hogan was heavily booed by the crowd, which received widespread coverage in the media, which was blamed on his support for Trump and the episode of Raw coming from Inglewood, California. California being a blue state, Inglewood being a majority Hispanic and black area of Los Angeles. Hogan was said to be disappointed but not angry. In May, Hogan underwent a cervical discectomy and fusion operation. During the procedure, his phrenic nerve, which helps the diaphragm contract and expand, was severed. Close friends Jimmy Hart and Eric Bischoff note a rapid decline in Hogan's health following the surgery. Hart shared that Hogan avoided visitors to prevent infection, while Bischoff recalled Hogan sounding weak and expressing embarrassment over his condition. Hogan died in Clearwater, Florida, on July 24th, 2025, at the age of 71, when he was in the process of doing therapy, having returned from hospital. The official cause of death was acute myocardial infarction, or a heart attack. His medical records stated he also had chronic lymphocytic leukemia as well. And just last month, last month by the time this comes out, A report into Hogan's death, an official investigation by the Clearwater Police Department, had determined that he died of natural causes and that his health had been very poor since the surgery, and therefore it's not a surprise he died. Hogan has been described as one of the largest attractions in professional wrestling history, and a major reason why Vince McMahon's expansion of his promotion worked. Dave Meltzer, the wrestling historian and journalist, stated, "You can't possibly overrate his significance in the history of the business, and he sold more tickets to wrestling shows than any man who ever lived." Hogan himself had previously said he was the second greatest wrestler ever after Ric Flair. Bret Hart has issued both praise and criticism for Hogan, lauding his look and describing him as a hero to both fans and fellow wrestlers, but calling his in-ring abilities very limited. Lovely stuff. And yeah, I've talked enough, frankly. So, that is everything that I've got on Hulk Hogan.
All right.
Yeah.
Curse you. Fuck you. Wow. God damn. That was startlingly scummy. Depressing. What? Yeah, I mean... But, I mean, the parallels to someone like Trump is fucking unbelievable. That's crazy.
Yeah, cut from the same cloth, aren't they?
Yeah, like like that's very interesting to know that Trump is not really like a one of a kind type guy, because
he's
Hulk
more of a
Hogan
symptom
is very much the same
of a general problem of that kind of person in America.
Yeah, it's wow. Just it's what a weird guy.
Yeah. He is
Yeah,
a weird
just
guy.
A very weird guy. Like wrestling. Well, yeah, it seems like a symptom. Like how many other wrestlers are like that? I mean, who was that guy who shot himself? Chris Benoit.
Hung himself after killing his wife and child.
Yeah, after killing,
Yeah.
call it a family annihilation. It's called in the business, which is
Great name for a
Whose
band.
business?
The family
The true crime
annihilation business.
the true crime business, I guess.
Right.
Wow.
I honestly
Ian,
hadn't got...
I'm also gonna curse you, just so you know. Just throwing that in there, because I already knew quite a lot of this. It was nice to delve into a piece by piece and year by year part of his career and recognize all the names and kind of know where we were in aspects of it. And I'm cursing you for a reason that may not translate properly over to listeners by the time this is edited, but your microphone has been so hard to keep up with.
Oh, sorry.
It's I've managed because it just goes really quick, but it's like listening to my daughter do a 2-hour podcast. Very, very fast. I've never heard you speak so fast. And after a 12-hour shift, my brain now wants to shrivel up and die again. So curse you, but thank you as well. And fuck
This
you.
episode, I kind of went like this. Like it was amazing hearing about his year by year breakdown of his wrestling career, and then you start diving into the man and you're like, oh, what a fucking twat.
Welcome to...
Yeah, Jesus.
Yeah. I had no idea that... I mean, I did obviously do a fair whack of research for that one. And whilst I was pretty much aware of all of it, I didn't stop and consider how much it might actually break someone like Chris. I was surprised it was like the song, but when you get the Bulger connection, it is actually a lot more horrific than just the casual...
It's so left field, like it's so like specific and like close to home to us as British people, and it's just like why you've got literally nothing to do with this Hulk Hogan. Why are you doing this other than you being a fucking moron? Like, oh my God, the Hulkamania has stopped.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I could. Yeah, to me, he was like one of the faces of wrestling. I knew nothing about any of this. I think this is the first episode where I am genuinely just like, fuck, that hurts, because I tie wrestling in so much with a particular part of my childhood.
Right.
before you grow up and you realise, like, yeah, actually, yeah, your family can be cunts as well. Like, so for, like, like, not to get, like, too emotional, but, like, by the time my uncle died, I hadn't spoke to him for, like, 7 or 8 years. But I always have those memories of being a kid and, like, and him and his friends, like, wrestling and all that. So you poisoned that, you fuck. Well, no, Hulk's poisoned that, the fuck.
Yeah, you didn't do it.
Gee.
I'm just a humble narrator.
Yeah, what was his name? What was his name? Was it Gene?
Terry.
Was it Terry? Terry, you fuck, you bastard.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Terrence.
hearing that, not surprised his daughter didn't go to his funeral. Fucking.
No. She seems to be like the most level-headed of all of them.
Play fucking. The thing that I do not understand, and you see it so much now in today's climate, and I won't go on a tirade. It's the lying to no purpose that I do not understand. That it's like, you are rich as fuck. You've got all the money that you could fit. Well, he did spend it in a lifetime, but he's
He was up
financially
and
set
down.
for life.
Yeah.
Well, he's financially set for life because he died soon after he went broke. So, he was on the outs, but whatever. But, like, you've got more money than most people will ever see in lifetime, and you still lie to no purpose. Lying about the George Foreman grill. What's all that about? Joe, that's like, do you remember that film that Lisa Kudrow was in after Friends about the school reunion?
Romy and Michelle's high school reunion.
Yeah. And they claimed that they invented the sticky notes.
Post-its, yeah.
Yeah. It's just like, it's lying to, like, no purpose. It's like, what, George Foreman grill? Like, what's the point? George Foreman will batter you.
Yeah, it's like it must be a deep psychological thing that's wired in people's brains. So no matter what your actual way of life is, you will still be this pathological and compulsive liar. We've probably known millions at work.
Well,
and, like, through
my
in
next
our
point,
lives.
funnily enough, my next point was going to be, was he so successful because of this ability to lie?
Maybe.
Just
Maybe.
no
I
sell the
don't
truth.
think it harmed. Yeah.
I think the best example of that is the idea that he would immediately stamp down on the union kind of aspect, because that so much benefited him that if he stays like the golden goose at the top of everything, great for him. Not so great for people.
Well, Peter Dinklage did exactly the same thing. He's pulling the ladder up behind you. That's what you do. Is that, like, you rise above, and like Peter Dinklage took
Yeah.
he called out, like, Hollywood for using little people in films, which ended up taking a lot of work away from little people. Whereas after he'd made all his money, after he'd got his fame, it's pulling the ladder. You get up and you pull the ladder up behind you so that people can't come up after you.
Yeah, and
That's
going
what
back
it
to
is.
wrestling, he was actually he called out famously by famous dwarf wrestler Hornswoggle, who said, "Who died and made you king of the dwarfs?" Legit.
I can't wait to see that film. King of the Dwarves.
King of the dwarves. King of the dwarves. King of the dwarves. King of the dwarves.
There probably is a Tolkien character who is King of the Dwarves, but
But don't
There
mention
are
that.
many.
You'll get...
There are many. No, I won't. No, that's come from a place of curiosity. That's fine. That's what I'm all about. There are many, Ian. There are 7 clans of dwarves. We only see one of them in Lord of the Rings.
We don't have time to talk about
don't.
any
We
of
don't
them.
have time to talk about them now. They're called the Longbeards. They're Durin's for. But yeah, Hulk Hogan again. It's that union busting. That is truly despicable. When you see, like, there's documentaries about the tactics that, like, union busters use, and there was one where a Chinese factory came to America, and some of the stuff they did was, like, they offered people like $2 more an hour or whatever, but it meant that there was a lot less actual rights. So it's proper despicable stuff.
yeah.
You being sent to bed now.
I know they say don't speak ill of the dead, but I've never kind of abided by that. So fuck this guy. What an arsehole.
Yeah, fuck him. Fuck him.
They always seem to live for fucking shit long as well.
Nah, he
71.
wasn't that old.
Yeah.
Yeah, good innings.
Yeah, my dad's overtaken him, so that's
So's your
Yeah.
grandma.
yeah. As of today, still alive. Yeah,
106.
106.
Fucking crazy.
106. Holy
I saw when
shit,
I saw her
man.
birthday. I was like, I was saying happy birthday for her when I saw you post about it a couple of months, like last month or whatever.
It was May. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I was just like, Jesus. Well, oh yeah, you got 6 minutes till it's July. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Ian. I mean, fuck you, but thank you.
Well,
Cool episode, man. I genuinely loved it. And what we'll find as well is that like people around our age seem to be like really hardcore into wrestling. Like if people are interested in wrestling, they're like really into it.
yeah.
But it's something that a lot of people don't talk about. So it's really interesting. I don't know why I keep saying that. Right, what have we got coming up on the podcast then, lads? Whose goes it next? Is it me?
It's me, Nick.
Is it you?
I
Oh, thank
think. Is
God.
it me? Is it me?
It
It
is.
is me.
It is
It
you.
is me. Now, I'm always chopping and changing what I was going to do. I was going to do a rapper called King Von. I was going to talk about him, but I can't be arsed. It's too dark, and I don't fancy doing anything too dark. So I am just going to talk about something that I do know a lot about for once, and I'm very interested in, and it is going to be Pokemon cards, Pokemon card investing, Pokemon card grading, and the controversies that have surrounded and currently surround investing, grading, scalping, and all that bollocks.
That's going to be an interesting one because I follow that quite closely, like the
Yeah.
drama around the scalping and stuff. Awesome! Oh, that'll be a great episode to like hear about. That'll be great. And then after that, it's back to me and yar me hearties. I won't tell you what we're going to talk about, but it involves pegging and bad
The
accents.
Irish?
They've got to get here somehow.
The Irish
Sailing
pirates.
the high seas.
The
Yes, we're going
Irish
to
Sea.
talk about the history of pirates. We are going to talk about the modern day pirates. And
I'm the captain now.
I am the look at me. I am the captain now. And how there is actually a way that you at home can fund piracy expeditions if you want to. Right
Yes,
now,
you're going to
there
be telling
is
me about
something
this.
called the Pirate Exchange, and it's actually got recorded returns. Pay you invest, they go out and kidnap, hopefully the French, and then you get a return on your investments. We'll also discuss why the word barbecue and the word pirate are actually very, very closely related with a common origin.
Yeah, that's going to be
So
an
that is coming
interesting
up.
one because I do find it very fascinating how romanticized pirates have become and were once, like with Pirates of the Caribbean, Treasure Island, or things like that. When in reality, they are all horrendous, horrific people who did some horrible, horrible things. Well, maybe not all of them. Okay, Chris is shaking his head.
Not what you'd think. It was, in fact, it was often the better alternative at the time. Pirates had things like health insurance, which was paid before any profits, so it was classed as something to be taken for the crew who were injured before any of the treasure was split up. They even had gay marriage, which was, and they had strict bedtimes as well, which was 8 o'clock. Blackbeard had famously enforced an 8 o'clock bed, or Black Bart, one of them, Black something. I sound like Hulkamania. I sound like Hulkamaniac. One of the blacks had a very strict bedtime for his lads, and it was 8 o'clock at night.
Right.
But,
Well,
yeah,
that
so-
excuses all of the slavery, kidnapping, and things like that.
I'm going to ask you to hold I'm going to call them preconceptions because I think the people you're raging against are actually the ones who cause piracy rather than the pirates themselves.
Okay,
But
cool.
we'll get there because it's a very fascinating, especially the modern day piracy stuff, because there's some stuff now happening that isn't technically piracy because it's just a political act, whereas piracy was, but anyway. But yeah, that we won't go too much more into that because, as you can tell, I'm very excited. I'm also excited for Nathan's. This podcast's mainly just to sate my curiosity, to be fair. So it's doing its job there. And
Cool.
Ian, I nearly called you by the name you've called yourself in the studio there. Ian, what do you have a plan for your episode? Are we finally going to hear about Iron Gorge? Is that the one in the Midlands?
Yeah, potentially.
Well, we were until I started laughing while I said it.
But we'll see.
Awesome. Right. Well, it is midnight, and because I'm a man, I'm going to go and walk my dog with no fear, which is a horrible flex. But it was just one of my neighbours mentioned it to me while we were walking together. We were walking the dogs together at night, and she was like, "Oh, I wouldn't be able to do this if you were here." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And it turns out that all the times we can go out on a night, a lot of women can't do that. So, yeah, that's a depressing reminder about
I mean, I
how.
can't do it either because I'm a coward.
Huh?
I don't have a dog.
Go out and walk someone else's doggy and walk really quick behind
I
them.
can't be asked.
And then say, "Can I walk your dog?"
Chase a woman with a dog.
Yeah, and that's the wrong message to take from this podcast.
Yeah.
But as you can tell, we're at the end now. So thank you for listening, whoever is still here at the end with this shit. I hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you are. And remember, when you were at school, your teachers could tell that you were trying to look down their tops. Yeah, and they all talked about you in the staff room. And they all called you a little pervert with a tiny cock.
Well, like that.
Yeah, so remember that. You're not as slick as you think you are, and that women can always tell when you're checking them out.
Unless you're chasing them.
Unless you're chasing them, in which case it's completely innocent. Right, it's a goodbye from me, Chris.
Goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me, Angela White.
Bye.